Correspondence this evening.
We do not have any correspondence.
Moving on to item C, public comment. Just a reminder, if you want to make public comment, please come up to the table, speak your name clearly for the record, and you are limited to 3 minutes. The board cannot engage with public comment.
Hi, good evening, everyone. Andrea Kelly, Humboldt County Support Staff Organization President. Good evening. I'm here tonight because I have serious concerns about the proposed transition to a 4-day school week. I understand the intention behind this idea, but I think we need to take a step back and really look at the long-term impact, not just the short-term convenience. If this is truly about doing what's best for students, the research simply doesn't support this change. The Education Commission of the states reports there is no consistent academic improvement anywhere. Most evidence shows neutral to negative impacts. The bottom line is this: there is no strong evidence that this improves learning and real evidence that it can hurt it. Beyond academics, we also have to think about the reality for students. Longer school days can lead to fatigue, especially for our youngest learners, and a shorter week often means less instructional time overall and reduced access to meals and support services that many of our most vulnerable students rely on. We also cannot ignore the impact on families. Many parents in our community work 5 days a week. Studies shows that when districts move to a 4-day schedule, families face higher childcare costs, missed work, or reduced hours. Lower income families are hit the hardest, and many districts even see increased student absenteeism on that day off. The reality is the burden shifts from the district directly onto families. Finally, I want to address something that I believe is being seriously overlooked: our support staff. While current bus drivers and cafeteria workers may be protected under existing contracts, future employees will not be. Without enough hours, new hires may not qualify for the public employees retirement system or even for health insurance. That creates a 2-tier workforce and sets us up for recruitment crisis. So I have to ask, without benefits, what exactly will this district have to offer these new employees? This isn't just about changing a schedule. This is about student outcomes, family stability, and the long-term sustainability of our workforce. And I know we may hear that this is working in other districts in Nevada, but we need to be very careful about what working actually means. Does it mean it's easier to schedule? Does it mean it saves money? Or does it mean students are learning more, families are supported, and staffing shortages are solved? Because the research does not show improved academic outcomes, and many districts that have made this shift are still facing the same staffing and financial challenges. We shouldn't make a long-term decision for our students based on short-term fixes or incomplete comparisons. I urge you to take a closer look, ask the hard questions, and reconsider whether this is truly the best path forward for our students and our community. Thank you.
Thank you.
Hi, I'm Christine Begay. I'm the HCSSO Vice President, and I wanted to take a moment to speak about the proposed shift to a 4-day school week, not from an academic standpoint, but from the perspective of the people who keep our schools running every single day. We've heard a lot about potential cost savings and scheduling flexibility, but what we're not talking enough about is the human costs, especially for our new hire support professionals. For many, their hours will be right on the line. Moving to a 4-day week doesn't just mean one less day of work. impact. It could mean falling below the threshold required to qualify for health insurance and retirement benefits. And I want to be very clear about what that means. We will be asking people to show up to serve students and to hold our schools together while stripping away their access to healthcare and their ability to build a secure future. That's not just unsustainable, it's unfair. We cannot expect people to stay in jobs that do not provide basic stability. And when that happens, we will see the consequences quickly: increased turnover, staffing shortages, and fewer qualified people willing to step into these roles. And when we lose those support staff, our students feel it. Services are stretched thinner, the very foundation of our school communities begins to crack. This isn't just about a calendar change. It's about whether we're willing to stand behind the people who stand behind our students every day. If we move forward with a 4-day week without addressing these impacts, we are not solving a problem, we're creating a much bigger one. I urge you to take a step back, fully consider the long-term consequences, and choose a path that supports both our students and the people who serve them. While the idea of a 3-day weekend may sound appealing on the surface, we have to look beyond that and consider the real impact. It is imperative that we keep everyone in mind, especially our students and the families who rely on us every single week. For many working families, school is not just about education, it's stability, structure, and support. Moving to a 4-day week risks adding unnecessary stress to households that are already stretched thin, forcing parents to find additional childcare or miss work. We cannot make decisions based on what sounds good in theory. We have a responsibility to ensure that what we choose truly serves our entire community. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Is there any further public comment? Seeing none. Moving on to item C, action to adopt the agenda. Are there any changes to the agenda this evening?
There are no changes to the agenda.
If there's no questions, I would entertain a motion.
I make a motion to reject the agenda as presented due to item I, committee reports. Item I used to be board reports, and this change was neither communicated to nor voted on by the board. If item I is changed back to board reports, then perhaps this agenda can be approved today.
I'll second. Okay, it's been motioned and seconded. Are there any further questions or discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
All those opposed? So Rob, what do we do when an agenda is, I've never had that happen, so what do we do?
Can I make a motion to amend it?
My research has led me to the conclusion that you, as the board chair, have the sole ability to structure a meeting, that the actual parts of the meeting and the flow of the meeting is solely within the purview of the chairperson. So I don't believe that that's an item that can actually be adjusted by an action item, especially one that wasn't agendized.
Do you have documentation for that?
Yeah, where is it at?
Why would we have to approve it if it doesn't need to be approved?
Yeah, why do we vote on it every meeting when it doesn't need to be approved?
And why is she the sole person who gets to do it? I want to see the NRS or the law for that. It's not an
Okay.
open meeting law because the law that I read does not read that way. It can be interpreted that way if you'd like it to.
Sure. I'm not prepared to speak on that this evening. I brought a legal opinion and support for the idea that we should make the change that was recommended. This honestly caught me off guard. Didn't expect such a motion.
Well, we didn't vote on changing that item. We didn't vote.
We weren't
We
even
didn't
aware of
even
it.
We weren't even aware
It
of
was
it. There
not
was no
communicated to us
discussion.
at all.
Right.
There was no discussion. There was no preliminary warning.
Board reports is the voice of the public through us that we bring before the board. At any other time, I cannot openly, through any venue, communicate to the rest of the board any topics, because now we've violated open meeting law, because we're talking to more than one person at a time.
Well,
So
and now
board
you,
reports is important.
We
So
don't have
unless
committees
you
also.
have some paperwork that says otherwise,
Well, and now you
it's
have
gonna
moved,
stand.
and now you have moved into the area that I was prepared to speak on, but I don't know if you want to take my item out of order and let me tell you what the legal advice is now, or if you'd rather wait till my agenda item comes up before, and maybe bring your motion again at that time after you've heard the legal advice.
Your agenda item probably should have been a training and a whole separate meeting.
Well, we did the training less than a year ago.
Well, at that
Everybody in
point
this
time,
room.
but was that part of that?
Probably not this exact topic. No, I don't think it would have been. It's a pretty minute area of the open meeting law.
Yeah,
But-
but no other board usually follows because the board reports are to have a conversation. We're not, our board reports are on legislative stuff usually, if we do a school visit, if we do those things.
Yeah.
So I'm not really sure what you understood our board reports to be or why they're that way.
Well,
You can give us one opinion in the open meeting law, which that's fine, but we're not the only board in the county that's doing it.
I know
And we
you're not.
have other legal representation, probably for ourselves, that we've communicated with other people. And I can tell you that, just because you feel that way, and I honestly think it's because you don't want to be in this room. You don't want to show up in the meeting, so you don't want to have to stop us.
I guess I don't understand that. First of all, I have no problem being in this room, but secondly, how would the proposed change cause me to not be?
Well, according to Sabrina, any discussion outside of a committee, which we don't have a committee,
Or an agenda item,
we're not allowed to talk about.
we're not allowed to talk about.
Us bringing up a legislative thing that we learn at, outside at NASB, or Ron when he met with families in Denio, for example, as of last week, there was an issue.
Why don't we do this? It was never my intent to tell you how to run your meetings. All I wanted to do was give my legal advice based on what I learned on this very narrow topic. And so, like, we can either take it out of order, and I can do that now, since we seem to be going down that road, or I can give you that legal advice when my agenda item comes up later in the meeting.
I would like to just approve the agenda with an amended item I.
Yeah.
I agree with you, Lonnie.
Okay, that's fine, and you can do that, but does that mean you still want to hear from me later?
Of course.
Okay,
Yeah, we still want.
And I'd like to set up a subsequent training.
we should do one every year. It's been almost a year. We did.
Multiple.
So I'm gonna make a comment. Judy, you are not part of this board. You are the secretary. You are to take notes and to listen. So your comments do not need to happen.
That's fine. I think that, as you pointed out, it's been moved and seconded, so let's make that part of the meeting tonight. Then you'll hear my advice later, and you can do with it what you want, and after that, run the meetings how you guys want to.
I think we just approved or reject the agenda, so we still need to approve the agenda. So I'll make a motion that we approve the approve an amended agenda to reflect the reinstatement of the individual board member comments in place of committee reports.
I'll second.
And is that we can change a item topic? I just want to make sure that we can.
You can do it.
Okay, it's been motioned and seconded. All those in favor?
Aye.
All those opposed? Motion carries. Moving on to item B, superintendent's report.
All right. Thanks, I just want to open this report by expressing my sincere hope that all staff, students, and families took the chance last week to disconnect and unwind on spring break and enjoy doing something they loved. It's been quite a year, and I know that for me personally, spring break couldn't come into more perfect time, and I hope that is the same for everyone else. I know as we return, we head into the busy season of testing, field trips, graduations, and I truly hope that everyone can breathe and enjoy the last weeks with the students in their classrooms. The week prior to spring break, we begin the transfer of teachers into positions in our new K-6 model. And while I certainly understand that not everyone was happy, and we knew we weren't going to make everyone happy, I do believe that at least the majority ended up in the position or school that was on their desired list. I want to take a moment and acknowledge Melinda Ramirez in the back of the room and Larry Renteria, who's not here, as they were instrumental in the work to transfer everybody. They worked with Mr. Christine and I to create a process that was fair as we could make it, and they provided consistent messaging to staff to ensure clarity. I also want to thank building administrators at each school site as they work to provide accurate information and guide staff to make the best decision for them. I'm happy to to report that all teachers have been placed and administrators are beginning the work of hiring into vacant positions right now. Dustin's working this week on the transfer of the remaining classified staff at Grammar, and this will be completed by, I think it's actually complete, but by the end of the week at the latest. As currently constituted, we have 12 open positions that principals are working to fill, and beginning with the next board meeting, I will bring regular staffing updates to the board so that they're aware. On Monday, the 30th, we had our final community-wide event to solidify the creation of the HCSD learner profile. It was great to have teachers, parents, and partners from our local business and industry in the room to discuss this profile and express our support for how a focus on employability skills could change their organization as well. I want to thank this group for their passion and desire, and we built engagement around student competencies. I'll have the final profile agendized at the next meeting, which will allow the board to see the competencies and definitions, as well as provide next steps as we roll into the new school year. Lonnie and I, as well as other district representatives, some of them are in the room, sat in on a presentation from A&H Insurance yesterday to explore the option of switching brokers and carriers. We will meet with our current broker on Thursday and provide them with an opportunity to share their perspective on the health of the district insurance as well, no pun intended. We were hit with an incredibly high initial renewal quote, so the time is right to explore all avenues and the opportunity to possibly go out to bid for a better rate and carrier option moving forward. I want to thank Lonnie for his time and expertise. I was blowing up his email and phone over spring break, which I'm sure he didn't enjoy, but he provided me with a lot of information, so thank you, Lonnie. I really appreciate how you've supported us on this. On Thursday, I'll be attending a virtual NAS meeting in which the superintendents will be finalizing our invest document that we provide to legislatures rolling into the upcoming legislative session. As this board knows, this session stands to be one of the most crucial in recent memory. Without substantial change to the pupil-centered funding plan and district support in general, I don't see a future where education exists as a fundamental promise to students anymore. I encourage everyone to make their voices heard heading into this session, and I will agendize the invest document when it's completed and bring in for everybody to review. Finally, I want to note to the board that we have 5 more paraprofessionals signed up for the UNLV and Nevada Forward Teaching Certification Program today. I think that brings us to 10 total employees in that program. And we'll actually see some of our first enrollees graduate this year. So pretty cool, pretty exciting. And I'm excited to speak on that and celebrate that, as we knew that was a priority to grow your own, and we're seeing it happen before our very eyes. So, and that is my report.
Thank you. Are there any questions for Superintendent Coleman?
Have we had any communication from the lithium mine with the school in Nevada or anything since our last?
The last report, they sent us the contract that wasn't up to standard. Right. It wasn't what was expected. And so we had Rob worked with their legal counsel to turn that back over to them and request some of the things that we knew the board desired get added into that contract. And I haven't, unless, and I know Rob would update me, but I haven't heard anything from them since then, Ron. So I believe they're just busy and probably still working on figuring out the updates that we need for that. A lot of it's still centered on that turnkey.
Sure.
Just so everybody's aware, right? I mean, there was language we didn't feel comfortable and didn't even want to bring to the board because it didn't make sense to bring it here because we know what you guys all desire from that school. So, perfect. Yeah.
Any further questions? Okay, moving on to item E, district celebrations. Are there any celebrations this evening?
There is not, but 2 we planned will be here at the next board meeting. So.
Moving on to item F, the consent agenda. Are there any questions on the consent agenda? Seeing none, I would entertain a motion.
I'll make a motion to approve the consent agenda as presented.
I'll second.
It's been motioned and seconded. All those in favor?
Aye.
Motion carries unanimously. Moving on to item G, discussion and possible action items. Item 1, presentation from the HCEA on the community survey results on future movement towards a 4-day school week.
All right, thank you, board. As I see Ms. Ramirez been making her way up front. Melinda approached the board, I guess, a couple months ago about the potential of putting a survey out to the community to get their feelings expressed. And so we provided you tonight with the opportunity to share those results with our board and with our community, Melinda. So I will turn the floor over to you. I'll do my best to keep up with you. So just throw something at me or something if I don't change on time. So.
Awesome. Thank you so much. Good evening, everyone. The goal tonight is just to bring you the information that I gathered from the community survey, some information that I've gathered from the surrounding districts, and some research. So we'll start with the first slide. I do have links in here for you guys to the articles I did a whole lot of diving into some research about the 4-day, and basically what I found is you can go either way with what you're looking at. They have pointed out that there's still little known effects on the 4-day school week, but most of what we see is more rural versus suburban. And so in the research that I was looking at, and one thing I really wanted to point out was from the article, it says, from a policy perspective, a decision to change to a 4-day week should be made on the basis of cost savings, which we know isn't a whole lot, or stakeholder preference, rather than to increase test scores. Conversely, it does not appear that concern over student academic performance should be used as a reason not to implement a 4-day school week. We also know that student performance, academic performance, has many factors attributed to it, such as experience of teachers, the curriculum, class sizes, not just the time in the classroom. One of the studies that I found was very interesting across Oklahoma was that they found that in the 4-day models of some of their schools, that high schools saw less fighting and bullying among students after switching from a 5-day school week. And I'm gonna let Sean talk for just a second because he kind of dug into the research of the communities surrounding us.
Yeah, I just pulled data from the Nevada report cards on a lot of our surrounding districts just over the last 2-year increments, mainly focusing on Elko County and all their high schools, followed by Pershing, Lander, et cetera. Really to kind of back up what Melinda was saying, not a lot of significant change in academics. And this was just me looking at the high schools, not K-12. Most of the graduation rates stayed within about 3 to 4 percentage points of where they were at prior to switching to a 4-day. The most significant benefit that I saw was reduction in chronic absenteeism. Some schools were as high as upwards of 10%, which if you're looking at a 5% movement, at least for us at the high school level, that's a pretty big gain or a pretty big reduction. So that was the biggest benefit that I could see switching to a 4-day is if you're really trying to tackle your chronic absenteeism program, this could help. We know at the high school, our biggest miss day is Fridays. Followed by Wednesdays. So that would be something to consider.
Can you share that data with us?
Yep, I have it all on a spreadsheet. I'll send it to the board.
Sean, and this is rumor only, but I heard that Elko was going back to a 5-day.
They
So,
haven't voted on it yet.
yeah, every high school administrator that I spoke to told me that change has not been discussed with them yet, so I can't tell you yes or no on that.
Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Also interesting that chronic absenteeism on Wednesday, because I've sat up here for years and said we already go 4.5 days a week, so.
Yes, Nicole, thank you for that.
But at the end of the day, I mean, that's really all I have to say about that one.
All right, next slide. I have some more links here for you. So the benefits beyond the grade book, attendance, they have seen significant improvement in both student and teacher attendance rates. Discipline, documented decrease in student disciplinary referrals. Retention, lower student dropout rates were reported in our peer districts. This was Idaho data. I also had a lot of people flood me this last week. Jerome, Idaho just adopted their 4-day week, which is one of our neighbors up there. And then the atmosphere is measurable improvement in school morale and positive attitudes toward the learning environment. So out of the survey, we had 2,126 total responses, which is huge. Out of those responses, 61% were from parents, 20% were from students. So we're looking at 81% of the responses are parent and student driven.
So I have a question on your survey with the numbers. Was there a mechanism, so you're a teacher and a parent, could you take the survey twice, or was it just where you could take it one time?
So it was set up where you could choose all, you could choose multiple if you wanted to. So like when I took it, I chose parent and employee. But like when we did the K-6 school survey with Noel, we don't set it up through the school district to collect emails because we find that we don't get parents that actually put their information in. So it was performed the exact same way that Noel did it with the K-6 or K-5 schools.
But it could have been done multiple times by the same person. Sorry.
Okay, next slide. So when we look at how do you feel about moving to a 4-day school week, And the strongly support, somewhat support was 79%, and the somewhat opposed, strongly opposed, 15%. Next slide. This was just asking how many children you have enrolled, 1, 2, 3, or more. So those are just kind of spread across.
Can we go back to the none percentage?
To the overall.
I just wanted to see how many were the none that had no students in there.
Oh, got it.
17%.
So those would go with the community members. So we had it was 16.7% community member. Okay, grade levels that the children were enrolled in. I found this kind of fascinating. Most of it was in elementary, which a lot of people state that the concern is for the younger kids being in school longer, but we see that elementary parents are the ones who actually took most of the survey, with high school just right behind it. Okay, sorry, I'm just trying to make sure I'm following with that. The free or reduced lunch, 49%, I knew I should have brought my readers. 49% said no, 16% said yes.
That's interesting, just with the 49.5%, because we just got rough numbers and 55% of our district is free and reduced lunch.
Is it?
And that's my greatest concern, right there, is who took this survey, who participated.
It's hard out of over 2,100 people.
Yeah,
I mean, it's a huge community.
but I think this
without-
tells us basically, this really does give us a
It
good
really
idea.
probably wasn't the lower population that need those services.
It was provided. It was provided
Yeah.
through Facebook. It was provided through Infinite Campus. It was provided, principal at the high school sent it out. So I mean, it was given.
Distributed.
Yeah,
It was distributed.
I'm just simply saying.
The potential benefits, so the top two, of course, were the improved student well-being and family flexibility. And you can see most of them are pretty high up there. And then you go compared to the potential concerns, and those are roughly low. 44% with not having any concerns. The one that does stand out the most is the longer school days at 33%. Next one, concerns that apply directly to their household, 53% no concerns, and then the longer school days. And it's actually more the earlier start times versus the later dismissal times. Was more of a concern.
Yeah, I mean, getting your
Getting your kids up and out of bed?
well, I mean, the reality is, for most kids, it's hard to get up already at 6:30 a.m. And we have kids on the proposed bus schedule that you're gonna show that could get on the bus at 6:15 in the morning.
And what time do they get off the bus?
Yeah, we'll look at those. The next one was the importance of the instructional minutes not being reduced. That was pretty even between very important, somewhat important, and not important. Would a 4-day school week create childcare or daycare challenges for your family? 68.6% said no, with only 8.2% saying yes. Childcare concerns applying for the family. We gave the options of Friday coverage, drop-off or pickup conflicts, costs of childcare, access to the Boys and Girls Club, and a few of those are there, but really the 82.2% did not have any. How concerned are you about the students having limited supervision on that non-school day? 68% had no concern, where the 26% were somewhat or very concerned. How concerned are you about the impact on school meals? 69% not concerned, and then 16.9% with the somewhat or very. I did talk to a teacher in Elko, and the very first year that they went to 4-day, they ran a meal plan out of the schools on those Fridays for the first year. And she said it was mostly the employees and their families that came and got the food because the families didn't come and get it. And so the second year, they just decided not to do that.
Yeah, because if you're offering that, I mean, that's a huge expense from the district. The USDA doesn't cover that for us.
Correct.
That would come out of our general fund. When we did that for COVID, it came out of our COVID money.
My concern would be for the kids who need it. not-
Yeah,
not
They don't
having
have the
ability-
transportation to
Not
get
having the
there.
ability to get there.
That's also my concern.
Yeah.
But we do still have communities and schools that have food drives. We have the option to do backpack programs. There are options out there for those students that truly need it. How concerned are you about the impacts to sports and extracurricular? 71% had no concern, 23% somewhat concerned, not concerned. And I know that this was a big one that Colby and I talked about. So I asked Alyssa and Brandon if they would reach out to some coaches throughout the district, since they really have the basketball in the gyms, which is where we would have probably the most problems.
Are we just talking about Elko and Spring Creek? Because for me, with the 4-day schedule that you have, I understand we have Persian and Battle Mountain, but they're not the same population as us.
Right.
Hawthorne's not the same population as us. They don't have the same scope. Fallon does a hybrid type of 4-day. I didn't see that they were reached out to, or at least in this survey. Lyon County has about the same, maybe a little more than us. And they weren't reached out, and I know they didn't go 4-day. It was talked about last year, and they had several reasons with late practices, those type of things. So I'm just curious.
So to
We all
answer
have
that,
to-
I did not reach out to Fallon because they are hybrid. And Lyon County, I didn't reach out to them because they're not 4-day. I reached out to the ones around us that are 4-day. So Alyssa can tell you which coaches she reached out to.
Good afternoon, my name is Alyssa Jones and I'm the varsity girls basketball coach at Lowry High School. With the talk of the 4-day school week, it's been brought to our attention, mine and Coach Eastman's, that there are concerns of what practice schedules would look like with the longer school days. While conducting research, I reached out to 2 fellow coaches that also coach in districts where they have a 4-day school week. I consulted with Kevin Wickware, the coach at Churchill County High School in Fallon, and Lee Houston, the coach at Pershing County High School. Both coaches expressed that they have 2 gyms that they use just like us. They start their first practice at 3:30, and their last practice is done by 8 p.m. That is earlier than what 2 of our teams practiced till last season. Varsity boys and I believe JV boys both didn't get done until 8:30.
Well, how short are your practices?
Varsity practices are 2 hours, and JV and freshman practices were an hour and a half, I believe. Both coaches expressed that they couldn't imagine going back to a 5-day school week. Another advantage to having that 4-day school week for them was missing a lot less school due to travel on Fridays for games. Taking the information that those coaches provided us, Coach Eastman and I created a few rough draft practice schedules to get an idea of what our days could potentially look like. With the first practice starting at 3:15, and the last practice for varsity boys ending at 8 p.m. and 7 p.m. for JV boys. So if you're interested in seeing those rough draft schedules, I have copies if you'd like
So
to.
that's 4 hours and 45 minutes, right? That's what I came up with.
Yep.
For 3 teams. Three teams at each gym. Okay, so that's about an hour and 15 minutes each.
For the younger levels, yes. For the older one, for our for our 2 varsity teams, we'd be between an hour and 30 minutes and 2 hours. The boys like to go a little bit longer. Our 30 minutes that we wouldn't have on court time, we would be using film time or conditioning time or weight room time. So we would use that 30 minutes that were not on court, improving our game.
And no transition time was figured into your.
No, on our experience, we don't really need transition time. We come right out of the locker rooms onto the court, so there isn't much need for transition time.
Nicole, you had something?
Yeah, can you tell me what time you guys usually left on those Fridays and how many kids were impacted? Because and I guess, are you all traveling at the same time? I know boys play later, obviously.
Right.
So if you could just explain to them what your travel looks
Sure.
like.
So on Fridays, the first games start at 3 p.m. So typically, freshman boys and JV girls play at 3 p.m. They're usually leaving by around, I mean, it depends on where they're going, but typically around 11, they're leaving. They're traveling 2+ hours away. We've had to take time we're headed to Reno, take time through USA Parkway, that traffic into consideration. We typically try to feed them before a game, so we work that time into it. We've worked it both ways, where we've had all girls teams on a bus and all boys teams on a bus. That typically makes for long days since girls don't play till 6 and boys don't play till 7:30. So recently we've adjusted it so that there's freshman boys, freshman girls, and both JV teams on one bus, and the 2 varsity teams leaving later. So that gets the varsity kids to stay in school a couple class periods longer. But ultimately, they're still missing at least 2 to 3 class periods every time we leave. And because we're playing in the afternoon, we're always missing the same 3 class periods.
So those kids will have the extra homework to make up in those late nights when they're getting out of practice at 8.
And this one I teach at the high school. 3 or 4 Fridays ago, I had 40 kids gone on a Friday, in just my classes alone. So,
How many of our sports teams have events that aren't on Friday?
That was gonna
So
be my question.
volleyball has middle of the week games. Softball, usually JV teams, same with JV baseball. Baseball had some.
Wrestling?
Wrestling, wrestling's different because they
Right.
sometimes have the bigger tournaments, so they leave differently.
They do.
But there's also,
They do midweek
Correct.
rules though.
correct, they do midweek duels,
No,
but not
no midweek
anymore. We
duels.
only
Very
have
rarely do we do midweek duels.
Yeah, wrestling is usually just on the weekends.
Golf.
Yeah,
is
golf
one that
is
always
another
has to be
one.
during the middle of the week.
Basketball does have some games in the middle of the week.
occasionally, yeah.
Cross country,
Cross country, yep. Track,
I just wanted to put that up.
yeah.
So the majority of our
Yeah,
high
so when
school
we have,
sports.
when we have those days, they're
It's only
missing
2 to have on
Tuesdays and Fridays on top of that. When we do have the midweek schedules, they're missing them multiple days a week.
Yeah,
The same.
my concern is with the midweek schedules and stuff like that, then, the Fridays are convenient for a few of the sports, but the midweeks, now we've got kids going to school 3 days a week instead of even 4.
Well, and then not just that, but when they miss school during the middle of the week, like as a parent of a child that goes 4 days out in the rurals, their day isn't counted as just one day.
Yeah.
If my kids miss a full day, it's like 1 point
Correct.
something. I don't know what it is, but it's more than.
1.25.
Can I have Sean, he was kind of trying to help out with which sports are during the week and which are more on the weekends.
Yeah, football will always on a Friday or Saturday if we play at places that don't have lights. Track is always on a weekend. Very rarely we have attended a meet that starts on a Friday. If it's like a 2-day meet, that's usually a regional or state competition. And then, basketball occasionally has a midweek. Wrestling can have the occasional duel, but usually we're weekend tournaments with wrestling. Our track, cross country, all weekends. Golf has to be during the middle of the week. Golf courses, all our high school teams on during the weekends. Baseball, softball can have midweek competition as well. But just so you guys know, we're one of, I believe, 3 teams in our league that are not currently on the 4-day schedule.
Sean, can I ask you a question? Coach mentioned just basketball, but we don't have any lights on our baseball or softball fields.
we don't.
Where are they gonna practice when it
And
gets dark
that
at
can definitely
5 or
be
6 o'clock?
a concern depending on what a proposed school day would be soccer, baseball, softball, track, cross country, any of those that don't have lights. Currently our football field is the only thing that has lights that we could have a practice in. Our inside sports are fine, but any of our other outside sports, if our school day is going to a certain amount of time, we're not gonna get all the practices.
Yeah, for track, the candle power of those lights is going right on the field, it's not on the track.
Correct.
Thank you.
All right, and then the next question was, are you an employee of Humboldt County School District? This one had 81% no, only 19% are employees. So I just really want to point out that this is parent and student driven. This is not employee driven. The next slide, I forgot to add that the following slides are now from staff. If they answered yes about being an employee, it took them to a new section of questions. So these are all staff survey results. How do you think a 4-day school week would affect your work-life balance? 61% significantly improved, with a 14.9 somewhat improved. So 75% improvement compared to 5% of worsen.
How many staff do we have total?
About 400, give or take, but.
Yeah, I was aides, bus drivers, everybody?
Yeah.
350 to 400.
So how
So-
many teachers do we
200, pretty,
So
a
maybe
little less than 200, but
46
it's easier to go 200, 400, yeah.
teacher staff took this?
Yeah, I mean, you could assume that's
Assume that,
probably.
I guess an assumption, yeah.
Mhm.
Yeah, I didn't break it down to like job families or anything like that. The next one was staff concern about longer instructional days. 58% not concerned. There is still that, 34% are that slightly concerned or somewhat concerned. I think that goes with all kinds of changes. How might a 4-day school week affect staff recruitment and retention? 69.4% thinks it'll have a positive impact. I know I was just talking with a friend in Battle Mountain, they're cutting 2 teachers. She made a comment of, hey, you guys go 4-day. So, next up we have the bus times. This was what Anthony had given me a while ago. You wanna come up? Put him on the spot. Because I don't know, I haven't been able to have a conversation with Anthony. I don't know if this has been updated at all since the adoption of switching the schools, because now we have one less school. So I'm gonna let Anthony kind of talk to this.
Okay, all the bus numbers are pretty much different now for the most part, but got a lot of new buses and moved some stuff around. Look,
As long as it's starting in.
most of our times on start times are accurate. The only one, bus 133, which is our Paradise route, our first pickup is not at 6:22, so that one will most likely be 5:52 now instead of 6:10. 132s will be 10 minutes earlier than that. The other ones are all pretty accurate. Other than that, that's about, everything else stays pretty close to the same.
Anthony, just from looking at this, a guesstimate, looks to me like our students are gonna be away from home. The majority of our students that ride buses, nearly 12 hours away from home.
So right
Every
now,
single day.
every student that rides a bus, like if just the first student who gets on the bus is what I go off of. They're
At 16.
gone for 10 hours a day, right now. When you go to the 4-day, it turns into closer to 11. It's about an hour because you're adding a 30-minute in the morning, 30-minute in the afternoon is kind of what I went off of.
Well, from 6:17 to 5:55, that looks like it's about 11 hours and 48 minutes, or 38 minutes, 11 hours
Oh,
and 38
no,
minutes.
so on the left-hand side, those are our current pickup times.
Oh, yeah.
On the
sorry.
right-hand side, those are proposed pickup
Oh, okay.
times.
Got it.
Yeah,
If
Got
the
it.
school
Sorry.
start times were gonna be whatever at the bottom, sorry,
Yeah,
I should have explained that.
No.
And Anthony pulled these school start times at the bottom just to get an idea, those are definitely times that can be adjusted for our district. But it was just to have an idea of what they could potentially look like.
I apologize for
It
that.
would still be 11 hours.
yes.
Yes.
I just knew for sports, we were gonna try and keep it as close to that 3:00, 3:05 time, so I did mine as we're going to school earlier instead of going to school much later. So that was kind of what I went off of, and they're all actually still pretty accurate. Like I said, 133s could vary depending on if we have that first kid or not at the bar, but that's about the only one that really changes from what I did.
So, for the people in the audience and everyone watching, I guess, I probably should remind people that each legislative session the last 2 years, they've wanted to mandate that we start high school times like later to like 9 o'clock because it's better for students.
Mhm.
So I see this and I might have been up for work at that time in the morning, and probably most of the people in this room aren't, right? So for, we're asking high school kids and junior high kids who don't have a means of transportation to use a school transportation at 5:48 in the morning. That seems pretty crazy.
So I will say, when we had this conversation the last time, there were a lot of Facebook comments about it, and a few of them that I read on there were from people who lived in the rural, who would have been on that bus, and they made comments about, I would rather go an extra hour a day to have that full 10 hours on Friday to be at home. So,
Well, and then something else along those lines that's not reflected in this is the kids that do ride these buses and then go to these sports, they don't ride the bus home. They're stuck in town until 8:00 PM, where their parents come and get them and take them home. So they're gone 16 hours a day from home. That is a long day for a kid. I
It's
know
a
my
long day for an
son,
adult.
my son, in football, last year would come home dead at 9, 10, 11 o'clock at night. And I would expect him to function the next day and produce to school, so that's,
I
know it's not reflected in either number, that's what we bring up.
And I just want to throw it out there that who knows what's going to happen next legislative session. We could be mandated to make school start for high school kids at 9 a.m. and it barely didn't pass last time. So, I mean, there's the reality of that. So then we have high school kids going to school starting at 9, have to get all the instructional minutes in, and then we're going to have athletes who then have to do homework and practice and do everything as well.
I guess my greatest concern is our underprivileged students. I don't know if they were represented in this as well as some of our other students in the survey. Is that dynamic in there with our at-risk students, underprivileged students?
well, and I understand that concern. I have no way of verifying.
Except for
They are
the
not.
lunch, free lunch.
Right. But we have to remember that our school district is not just our schools, like our community is not just our schools. We have the Boys and Girls Club as a resource, we have communities and schools as a resource. We have the food bank as a resource. We have a lot of resources in our community. I wanna go back to, we did put this out to the community, and I'm just giving you guys the data
Yeah.
of what they are trying to tell you through this survey.
Yeah, but only a certain, and I appreciate this too, but it's only hitting the scope of certain people. Like last time, we made the decision through the K through 6, we had data, we had hard facts, we had information, we had studies, we had stuff, right? Like, we had more than just a survey to go off of. And I understand that those
Respectfully,
are.
it was the same kind of survey that we did for that. And I'm
Correct,
trying to
but there
give
was
you,
other stuff.
I'm trying to give you data and the
No, and I appreciate the data. Like I said, I think there, I don't know how you get everybody involved in it, and that would be great if we had mechanisms to necessarily do that. I don't know that there is a mechanism that does it. It kind of got me started. I read every single Facebook comment on these, and there were a lot of them out there. I've talked to families all around Winnemucca about it, and I've noticed a similar thing. The more affluent families that I've talked to, they're all for it. They want to have the extra time with their kids. They want to be able to take them to Reno. They want to do that kind of stuff. The less affluent families that I know, they're very concerned about it. They're very concerned about their ability to take care of their kids on these days off. They're concerned about longer days, things like that. And that was, I would say, I had a different impact or different experience in the study because, I was actively trying to seek out, getting my 50-50 range, talk to everybody kind of thing. I talked to administrators in Spring Creek and Elko and all over the place there. I talked to folks in Reno that have been in these systems and had opinions. I talked to people in California, that my family, who were all school teachers over there, with the different stuff. And I just, what I was hoping to see out of this more so was, how does this positively benefit the student? Period. And everyone, even the administrators, almost every administrator I've talked to just the folks I talked to, that I've talked to, has said if we could go back to 5 days, I would. And I haven't found a single study, except I think there's one. I read the Oregon study. That's probably the most commonly cited on this topic. I think they were going back in 2010. I can't remember where that was, in Arkansas or something like that, where they actually had some positive stuff on it. But it was 2010, I think it was taken, and that's since a lot of that has gone down. All the studies I've read have shown not a huge decrease, but almost every one of them weighs on the side of a decrease in student retention and scores, things like that. So I mean, what I want to see. And I don't know if I didn't want to break in until the end of this, but since we're having the discussion, I want to see how this positively impacts kids, how it positively impacts their scores, things like that. Like I said, I'd love to see the data on the bullying stuff. I assume that kids are in school less. There's going to be less bullying reported in school, probably 20%. And it's only 10, so it kind of bugs me because they're in there 10% less.
Corey, could you go back to the first page, please, of the not bus signs, back to the.
Slide 22. This one?
Yes. Conversely, it does not appear that concern over student academic performance should be used as a reason not to implement a 4-day school week. Really?
What they're saying is that either the studies showed that it was null or minimal.
And that's what I saw.
And it was all minimal decreases. It wasn't minimal increases.
It's saying not to take that as your sole reason.
Yeah, that's right. I gathered like.
And I can say the numbers the minimal decreases were off that Oregon study. That's one of the first lines on the Oregon study was what's that, 0.3 to 0.7%,
Yeah, they
or
were
0.9%. It was 0.7% was the average on them. Another thing to point out, we bring up a lot that Paradise has a 4-day school week and stuff. With smaller schools with low populations, that you have a completely different teaching model,
Correct.
which we can't do in the larger area. It shows that they don't have, it's not good or bad. They're not having any issues whatsoever in those models. When you get into the larger models is where you start to see the decrease.
You have a different family dynamic.
And I think a different
In a
student-teacher relationship
rural
as well.
school.
Yeah, and less people, so you're gonna have less drama, I suppose.
Nicole?
So we did this in McDermott right before I got on the board. It was a huge failure. It did not work. They're bigger than the regular rural schools. It was made to see how it would go there because they are rural, right? They're smaller than us. It didn't work. We went back. I don't know how many years ago, we had the McDermott teachers and administrator come to us and ask us to entertain it. They did a survey. They also surveyed kids, just kids without any information from teachers telling them how to vote, or 84% of those kids said they wanted to be in school 5 days a week. Obviously, McDermott's a different socioeconomic than we have
Different dynamic,
here, a
yeah.
different dynamic here. Reading this presentation and hearing the things, we're very focused on the kids that play sports. We're very focused on the families that have the flexibility. I know you have more to go, so we'll let you finish, but I feel like we're not hitting the perspective of why we're here, right? And I will be the first to say a 4-day would be great for my family. I've said that before. My kid plays travel ball in California. She misses Fridays, not all day, but there are times that she does, and it would be great. But that's just me, and I can't look at just me and my kid or what's convenient for me.
I think we need to let Melinda finish though,
Yeah.
because at this point, she's asked for the opportunity, and we have always said that we need to listen to our constituents, and that's what she went out and did, was gather the information. So I think it's fair to let her get through, and then, because we're gonna have concerns on both sides of the
Yeah,
table.
and we're gonna have more questions.
So, thanks, Melinda.
Okay, so the second one was the drop-off times. Like the picture on the left-hand side is the current drop-off times, the right-hand side is proposed drop-off times with those schedules. And I just want to point out, Lowry High School, we have going until 3:05, which helps hopefully deter some of those concerns about the students getting out so late and getting home. It helps those practice schedules starting earlier. While I'm on the buses, I do want to address HCSSO's concerns. Of course, as a union person, I absolutely do not want any employee to take a hit in pay or benefits. I do appreciate that the district did work with HCSSO and they were able to get contract language for our current employees that protects them. I do agree with the concerns of future employees, but I do think that that is something that the district could still have a conversation about and figure a workaround with that. Okay, the next slide. Thank you, Anthony. On the right-hand side are the recommended minutes from the state. On the left-hand side are what our current instructional minutes are, kind of per week. So really it's like for K4, we go 370 minutes a day. But if you take that Wednesday early release out, we go for 1,760 minutes a week, which is 560 more than the state recommends, which I'm not saying is bad. More is better, right? And then you can see down between the 3-6 with the state. So the state recommends K2, 3, 6, 7, 8, 9, 12. We have K4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 12. So you can just look at the comparison of the state recommended minutes versus what we're currently doing per week. Like Nicole said, with those early release Wednesdays, we basically go to school 4.5 days right now anyways. So again, that would save travel time for students on buses, going just the 4 days instead of 5. Next slide, this is, whoa, you added that in there.
I'm sure what I did there.
This is our current schedule in our rural schools, Paradise Valley, Denayo, not Denayo yet, right?
Then
Or
two items probably.
Soon Denayo, previous Denayo. The students start at 8:15. They have a recess from 10 to 10:15. They have a 45-minute lunch and recess. They have recess from 2 to 2:15, and students are released at 3:30. Just to put this in perspective, me at Sonoma, my students start at 8:20, and they are released at 3 o'clock.
Okay, I do want to make a comment on this one though, having a rural student. So then on Thursdays, our kids lose a lot of instructional time out there because we have PE and art on Thursdays. And I will tell you, our kids lose about half for their pull-ups, they lose about half their instructional time. Then if you have kids in things like speech therapy or any special services, they are also losing time for that. So just so everybody has that knowledge.
That's a different timing.
Yeah.
I respect that. We have those pull-outs in our instructional days as well.
But so basically with our pullouts, though on Thursdays is our kids end up basically going 3 and like a quarter day with how long they're in their pullouts on Thursdays.
They
They
go
don't have them
longer in the
every
day.
Yeah.
They're not released at 3:30.
No, they're released at 3:30, but
They lose
we
the
go
instructional
Monday through
time.
Thursday and one group of kids will be in PE or art for about 3 hours in the morning and then the other group goes in the afternoon. So essentially they are in school 3.5 and then have fun.
The difference is it's pullouts for, and I'm not sure, right? How many, do you have pullouts daily? Are they every other week
So
or every other day? Like, how does that?
the elementary schools right now have 4 a week at 45 minutes.
3 hours a week.
Okay, so, and there's just
180
3 hours,
Yeah,
3 hours on one
on
day
one day.
versus
So
program.
it's the same, it's just
You've got
one
small,
day
you've got
for
smaller
some
periods outside of instruction is,
Yeah.
I think, the point.
Yeah,
So the
yeah,
instructional
that's,
minutes are
yeah,
still
no,
equal.
I was.
Yeah, but
Okay,
it's still,
sorry.
Just wanna-
as a parent, it very much.
Yeah,
gets
no, I
and-
totally agree.
When it's on one day, I can absolutely, that would be, yeah. So they go 415 instructional minutes a day, taking away that 20-minute lunch. So 1,660 minutes a week. So reaching out, nope, that one, there we go. These are just some current schedules in the surrounding districts from Battle Mountain to Hawthorne, Lovelock, Elko, Spring Creek, and White Pine. As you can see, every district has kind of made their own decision on start and end times. Most of them have 30-minute lunches, some up to 40. I just want to point out, Elko High School does go to 3:55, but they have a 50-minute lunch.
Is that because they have an open campus too?
Yes,
I think so.
in spring break, that's
Um,
that's weird.
Because they went to 4 days, they went away from, or they went into instructional days by minutes. I was really interested. It's weird, but I love this stuff. It's really interesting to me how it can be different in different districts. So Battle Mountain actually goes 144 days. Elko goes 146 days. Hawthorne goes 150 days. So they were the only ones that I had transferred into minutes, so they get about 60,000 minutes a year. And Lovelock goes 143 days. Battle Mountain and Elko both start on the same day as us, and they get out the Thursday before Memorial Day. Lovelock starts the week after us and gets out the same day as us. So all of these schools are a week shorter in the year as well.
But their student populations are a lot smaller besides Elko.
Well, my question is, do they have the same like holiday, like breaks and stuff that we do?
Yeah, that's,
Yes, they
that's
had
not
all the same
figured into
breaks.
this.
I've got the schedules of all of them, if you would like me to send them to you, but they have, outside of Elko does not have the Monday, Tuesday of Thanksgiving, but everybody else has the full Thanksgiving, they have the spring break, they have the 2-week Christmas.
Do they have the extra, cause like I know coming up, we have that extra like 4-day weekend or whatever, or for the.
We have that extra 4-day weekend just because of how the calendar worked this year with our spring break falling with Easter. That was the only difference with that.
But that's gonna be the next 3 years because
Yeah.
we did
Yeah.
the spring break with Easter, so now we have that extra 4 days.
Because
Or
that's
for
what the
girls, it's
calendar
5.
committee wanted and that's what
Yeah.
we voted on, correct?
And with all of this, it would go back to a calendar committee again, it does that in all of these districts. They have a calendar committee as well that goes and looks at these and builds the calendar the same.
Do they do theirs in 3 to 5 year increments or do they do it year by year?
I think they did 3.
And that's what we did.
Okay, next slide. This is more for the teachers who were kind of curious what the contract work time would be. So our rural teachers right now, they work 7:30 to 4:30 contract and they have 7 Fridays for PD. Battle Mountain's contract is 7 o'clock to 4 o'clock. They do 2 Fridays that are used for parent-teacher conferences. And then their 3 PD days are half days throughout the year where the students are released at 12:30. Elko has contract depending on the school, 7 o'clock to 4 o'clock or 7:30 to 4:30. They only have 1 Friday that they do PD. Hawthorne is 7 o'clock to 4 o'clock. They have 5 PD Fridays. And then Lovelock, I could not find their contract time, but I do know that on their calendar, they only have 2 PD Fridays.
7:15 Nicole.
So we started early out and then we did the late start. And we did that so that our teachers and staff could have their PD without having to report on a non-school day. And that was pushed by the teachers. And that was a big thing. That's a thing we've always continued in the contract for that reason. And, you know, we get reports every year and everyone says it's great, it's, you know, what they need, it's what they want. Then we're not asking you to do extra days. Very rarely do we have those out days that we need teachers to do those things. And usually we'll approve that extra day off for the kids so that you guys can have your PD. But again, it's still in you know, the language it's in. But that was something the teachers requested. And I would have really liked to see in that survey how people felt about the early out Wednesday as far as parents and teachers and students, right? Because for me, that was pushed so hard for a long time. Is it not effective anymore? Are we just gonna throw it out the window so you can have 7 PDs throughout the school year? I guess that's where my mind goes with this stuff, and that's actually one of my questions at the end is, what is that gonna look like? Because I don't foresee people just being like, you know what, yeah, so then we're gonna write in a contract or negotiate, you know,
So I got
every
some
one
answers.
Friday a month, because I know
Got some
Fallon
answers.
does it.
Got some answers. When the school board was approached about the PD time, that was many years ago. We do have a lot more new staff than we had back then. I foresee in the future, we would have to negotiate a contract, so we would do this through negotiations, depending on what our contract time would be. The teachers would negotiate if they would prefer the longer days like the others do, or a shorter contract day. Most of the teachers that I have talked to have said that they would love to work one Friday a month. I don't foresee that being an issue from any of the teachers that I've talked to, that they would be like, no, I don't want to work any Fridays. So I don't think PD is we're not saying I'm just showing you what the other districts.
Yeah, no, these are just my questions because I was here when that happened, right? I was here when that was pushed, when it became a big deal. Yeah, I was
right,
here,
it was
so I
right at the
understand.
beginning, because I remember I just started at grammar school, and that was only, 5 years ago, so.
Another thing why I brought up Fallon is because they do a hybrid of the 4-day, right? But those 2 Fridays a month that their students are off, their teachers are in the classroom. So that's where their hybrid comes in and why it's a 4-day, twice a month for their kids. And that's why it would have been nice to see something like that.
I just want to point out that I was given feedback.
Yeah,
on the
no,
survey. I was
100%.
given
These are just my
questions to
questions.
Put into the survey from the board. I did my due diligence on this.
Correct.
Okay. All right, next one. I'd like to invite Nate Green up now. I talked to him about Boys and Girls Club, so that you guys can ask him some questions, because I know we both
have a list
as well.
All right, hello everybody, my name is Nate Green, I'm the executive director at the Boys and Girls Club, and Melinda asked me to come speak on what the role of the Boys and Girls Club would be if the district did decide to go to a 4-day school week. And so we feel like it's our responsibility, especially when it comes to the youth in Winnemucca, that we feel the need of the community. So we would open our doors on those Fridays for any kiddos that would need us. We would do it as we would a normal long day for us, so that's a 7:30 to 5:30 day. We provide a breakfast that day, we provide a lunch for the kiddos, and then we do an afternoon snack. And so right now, how our fee setup is, our fee structure is, we do our families pay for a monthly fee for the entire month. We would be able to separate that out because I think in this situation, a lot of families wouldn't necessarily come to us Monday through Friday. They would probably just need us for those Fridays. So we could bundle all those Fridays up not a discounted rate, but a different fee for those families. So it would be like a $40 fee for the month for a family that would need us on those Fridays. And so, yeah, I mean, that's basically it, yeah.
So how many kids can you hold?
Yeah, capacity could be a challenge. So when I started on the program side about 8 years ago, there was some after school days where we were over 200 kids in the club, and that's really busy up there. I've done a walkthrough with the Boys and Girls Club at Truckee Meadows, and their recommendation for our capacity could be up to about 350 kids. But that's breaking out your gym, that's breaking out your multi-purpose room and creating, additional spaces for kids to be at, which myself personally, I feel comfortable around that 200 mark. So yeah, capacity could be a challenge. And then the question would be, if the district did decide to go to this, would it be an option to, get back into the schools? We did our programming out at Grass Valley School for a lot of years, to where, if that could be an option, we can move back in there on those Fridays and house, some other kids out there.
How many students are you seeing on average now on
So,
Fridays?
yeah, our average daily attendance at the clubhouse right now is about 150 kids.
So you have room for about 50 more on those Fridays.
Yeah.
So, my other caveat to, opening our school, that was used, we paid you guys, correct?
We did,
We did. We paid.
Yeah.
For what?
We paid as a
During COVID,
district.
when you
Oh,
guys
for
were up
COVID.
there, yeah, we did.
Oh, sorry, I thought you were talking about our after-school program that we were running through the 21st century program.
Yeah,
those
no,
are
but
grants.
that was a grant.
Yeah, okay, I didn't, yeah. Some COVID, yeah, sure.
Yeah. But when we had to have that other option, we paid for that out of COVID money. Second, you could open your gym, you could have 200 kids, which is great. I guess my other thing is how are the families that rely on the bus for transport, how are they gonna get to the Boys and Girls Club?
Yeah, that would be another conversation with the district of transportation.
Yeah, but that would also cost money out of the district's budget that we're
Sure.
already.
And I'm just here giving information.
Yeah, no, I'm just asking the questions, because you guys don't have the transportation, correct?
No, we don't have any buses. We do employ a bus driver right now, but just one.
Okay, thank you.
Any further questions about the Boys and Girls Club section?
No, you said $40 a month probably is the likely fee for 4 Fridays a month.
Yeah, if those families just need us on Fridays.
Is that per kid?
Yeah, so that would be per kid, and then there's a multi-child discount, so it goes down $5 for the next child.
And what about the families that can't afford to go there? Is there like a
Children's
program that you
cabinet.
guys have?
Children's Cabinet is where we go first to see if they could get assistance there. And then also, in some situations, we're able to provide Boys and Girls Club scholarships.
And since you probably know Children's Cabinet maybe a little bit better than me, but that's usually just for single parents, correct? And above a threshold of,
Yeah, and they moved that threshold too, so it's been really difficult for a lot of our families. And
Correct.
some of our families have lost their subsidy due to that change.
Okay.
So to be at capacity, you can take maybe 50 more children on Friday, right?
Yeah,
And we have almost 1,500 children in our elementary schools right now. Is that correct?
Yeah.
I also like to throw out there that,
oh, yeah, we could.
not related to Boys and Girls Club, but the childcare portion, Zion no longer will have a childcare after June, so that option is now gone for,
The capacity of childcare on
Elementary.
Fridays in Winnebago, that really concerns me.
Yeah. And
Just
Nate,
for K through 5.
and I appreciate your information and your
Yeah.
presentation, yeah. But I don't know if it's even gonna make it down to what we might need. Does that make sense?
I was on a call with a board member before I came down here, and that was the big challenge that we were talking through, because we really didn't know, what that could look like for our
Yeah.
community, Got a little taste of it when we, the elementary, that was just 2 elementary schools that closed down, and I think we were all talking, what is this gonna look like, what are the numbers, and, it ended up being kind of the scary numbers we were thinking it possibly could have been, so it was definitely doable, but yeah, like, at 200 number, that's where I feel comfortable at, you could put more kids in that building, but quality of programming, safety, staffing, and all of those things would be, conversations that have to be.
thank you for that information.
Thank you, Nate, for
Thank you
that
for the info.
information.
Thank you, Nate.
I know that another conversation that people have had with childcare on Fridays was that we would now have high school, junior high kids that would be available for babysitting as well on Fridays. Some parents had mentioned that to me. All right, so this one I just kind of put in for like a ha-ha. I stole this directly from our website. Rural K-12 students thrive in an environment marked by strong academic expectations set amid close-knit communities with strong parental support. With a 4-day Monday through Thursday schedule, rural students enjoy expanded family time as well as increased attendance. So if we went 4-day, we wouldn't have to change the website. And that is the end of my presentation.
Thank you.
Thank you, Belinda.
Thank you guys very much.
I have a couple more questions, and maybe I guess it's just discussion with the board.
You
So,
got questions?
great that we had a survey. My concerns obviously are for our 55% free and reduced lunch students. The schedules, we kind of saw, obviously that's up to discretion of who makes the schedules. I guess we didn't really even talk about the scope of what it's gonna look like for our support staff, right? And, we say teachers are obviously teachers are with the students, but our support staff is with those students all the time. I've sat here and said our bus drivers are the first people those kids see every morning. That's where our school culture starts, when we've had those conversations. So, I mean, that's a huge thing for me too. Like, what about all those other people?
So I do know, because I have talked to my support people in the other counties. So the paraprofessionals, their hours are just extended with the day. so they're not affected. The custodians in Elko, the first year, they tried to go to 4 days for the custodians, but they found they were paying them too much overtime. So they moved back. The custodians work 5 days. And then on that Friday, they're able to get in and actually deep clean things when there's nobody in the school. And I believe the same is going on with the maintenance there as well. They continue the 5 days, and then on the one day, they're able to get in and do the things in the classrooms.
Has anyone talked to the transportation people over there? Like, what do the bus drivers do? What schedule? Do they get insurance?
So with Elko,
Do
it's
they-
hard because their bus drivers are not in their union, they're not part of it. I have had conversations with Annie. I've talked with Anthony about the different kinds of things that the bus drivers could possibly do. What they do in Elko though is the bus drivers pick up like the activities, the athletics or field trip activities. They clean the buses on those Fridays. They do just kind of a little bit of other things to get their hours in. But like I said, they're not part of the union, so I don't have a whole lot of information from them.
In reality, to be fair, we'd still have to pay them.
Yes, correct. In order to get
I think
people
that's
to,
the responsible, fair thing to do for them.
correct. Obviously, that, I wouldn't want to not do that. But it brings up the point of recruiting new people. Our bus drivers, it's been an issue, losing them to the mine people. And I mean, we're paying for CDLs, we're doing those things. There's just a lot of little things, right? It's hard for me because the people that have come and talked to us, the people that probably took this survey, in my opinion, and it's just my opinion, was not the people that are using the resources, right? They're the people that are working 12-hour days, they're single parents, or they're the ones that are in that 55% of free and reduced lunch of the kids that need to be in the classroom. And the reality is school is a place where those kids feel safe. That's their stability.
Well, I was actually really surprised on this, talking to my son, where he was at college, two of his roommates are from Spring Creek. They were on the four-day plan. I talked to him, and my son's kind of a squirrel. I mean, I get it, he's a good dude, he's smart, I dig him. But he even like every one of those kids, wanted to. When I brought it up, I'm like, what do you guys think, man, if you were doing this? And every one of those kids were like, I want to be at school, and that's, they were all for the 5-day thing. And it really surprised me. Even my daughter, which that one surprised me as well, because they're pretty independent. They're out there doing a lot of stuff. With her, I've got the same doctor's appointments and crazy stuff I got to deal with her. But, like I said, the thing I want to see out of this is, I know we're not making a motion on or anything today, we're just gathering information, but the information I want to see that's going to really change my mind about it, or that I'm open to, is how is this positively going to affect kids? And that's the biggest thing, and I don't see it plus or minus positively affecting them at all right now. And I want to see we're trying to change the system, like going through a K-6, because there's positive data that shows that K-6 model has a positive effect on kids. It has an effect on their test scores, on their retention, on all sorts of different stuff, and then we get into this, and everything I'm seeing, part of that conversation was the transition period and the time kids are, moving from one place to the next. And then with a part of that study, it literally brought up having kids out of school for certain periods of time. And whether now with the 3-day week, that's part of that, where you don't have the educationers. I mean, I started thinking about year-round school. I've brought that up to a few people at this point, because it keeps people in school for more consistent periods of time and less time out of school, where they're not losing their retention and things of that nature. I mean, those are just the studies that I'm seeing. So what I really want to see in order to change, I mean, I already had an opinion on this a year ago. What I want to see to change my mind is, how is this positively affecting the kids? I want to positively affect adults as well, but this is education, and it comes down to the kids for me. And that's really what I want to see that I'm not seeing yet. And it's more of a we've got to do that. As a school district, if we don't change the way we're doing things to get better scores, better retention, and have kids reading faster and things of that nature, we're gonna be gone. It'll be privatized. And if it's not privatized, they'll quit giving us money and they'll come in and do it for us.
Well, the pros have to outweigh the cons. And
Yeah.
I see pros, like I do, chronic absenteeism being one of them. I mean, I got a second letter today, we had a family emergencies happen, but that doesn't really allow for any other time for doctor's appointments and but that's one pro, right? So you have to look at, there are pros, and there are pros for our teachers to be, feel good, and we want that retention factor. So there are positive things that can come from a 4-day school week. But there are other things that definitely have to be addressed and looked at, and I think we just have to weigh that out. But I do feel like, looking at you feel like you're being kind of a punching bag. You're not.
No, I hope you don't think that.
I don't think that.
I really do appreciate, because we've talked about this as a board, that we do need to listen to our constituents. We do need to have feedback. We do need to have community input. And the reason that I was for getting the survey was because we didn't get that the first time. So I think it's great to have the information, because it allows us to really hear both sides. But yeah, I mean, our job as a board is going to be weighing out the pros and cons and making the best choice for our students.
And I appreciate your guys' questions, obviously. I've never wanted you guys to come to a board meeting and just make a decision based on what somebody had told you. I love you guys questioning it. I love you thinking through it. I love the debates. I'm for all of it. Just a couple of things I just want to point out before I end it is over 2,100 responses. To me, for any of the surveys that we put out for our school district, that speaks volumes. That's a lot. As far as the teacher side of it, I know for myself and the ones that I've talked to, getting rid of a Wednesday half day and being able to have one Friday a month to really just have the whole day to go in and dig in and prepare our lessons will make us better teachers, will give us better lessons. Having a little bit longer time in the school day for our lessons will allow us to dive deeper into our lessons instead of right now, we're rushed with the time to try to hurry up and get through. And then the next day you go to teach it and you have to go back and review it and refresh their brains, which is really hard to do with some of these kids. So there are so many more pros and positives that if you talk to the educators in the classroom, they can tell you could come from this. We just didn't put that in the survey. We wanted to know more of the community and the parents' thought process on it.
Well, thank you for doing that. I mean, I know it took a lot of work on your part.
Yeah.
And you collected a lot of information, so we do appreciate it.
Nicole, I think you had something else really quick to say.
Yeah, and one thing I'd like to see is students, because I have talked to students, obviously my kids are in high school, and it really hasn't been, I want to have a 4-day school week. So it'd be interesting for them to have their own input without feeling influenced by adults. And I don't mean that in a bad way, but just to have their own opinion. Also, all these schools go Monday to Thursday. What does a Tuesday through Friday school day look like? What does a Monday, Tuesday, Thursday, Friday if you want that full day for PD? Those are all options too that haven't been put out there, right? You just specifically are focused on Friday, which I understand. And again, I appreciate all of this study, but it's hard for me as a perspective to go off of, because where my head goes with population-wise, besides Elko, compared student-wise, there's no comparison with those other ones. So I understand that they're biased, but they're not like us as far as student population. So that's where I go with that. And no disrespect at all with what you did. It's a huge undertaking that we asked you to do and, said, here, we voted on this, but you want to bring us, so we can have a discussion. Great. So thank you for that.
Lori.
Yeah, just my concern, Melinda, is, with this 4-day school week, having those 3 days off where we have a very valid percentage of our students that have no supervision at home. And I worry about that a lot. So as Nicole just mentioned, what if you took Wednesday off instead of Friday? So that at least we know they're getting fed. Okay, 2 days and 2 days, and not going 3 days with no supervision, nothing and,
That's
break that up
definitely
that way.
something- That is definitely something the board could discuss.
And I understand Friday, get a 3-day weekend, all that's cool, but if we're, I'm like Lonnie, I wanna do what's best for our children. And I was in the school system for 31 years and I would have loved a 4-day school week. I'm here to tell you. And when it was first brought up, I thought, hey, this is a pretty good idea, I talked to a lot of people about it. And, the more I think about it, I'm not sure anymore.
No, I appreciate the idea of wanting to get the students' opinions. I don't know how to go about that without, like Nicole said, adult interference, because I thought about just asking my 3rd graders today before coming, and then I thought, they're gonna say what I think they want me to say,
Yeah. And
I don't know
that's
how
where I'm
to
at,
get
right? Like,
their true, and to get everybody, I don't think there is a mechanism that we
Yeah,
can
Right.
put into
Yeah,
I
place
think you're right.
to give you the answers that I would love to give you.
yeah,
Like,
no,
I would love to.
That's the hardest part for me, is just
I mean, I got 2 right
understanding.
here. Do you wanna go 4 days? Or
Yeah.
5? 4 days right here. Rowan, you wanna go 4 days? Oh, yeah, 4?
Ron, you had a comment?
So, your comment just now about the mechanism is perfect, because I'm looking at this survey as a whole. And other than maybe a couple little tweaks to get more info that we have questions on, what if there was a mechanism to deliver this survey to every student at enrollment where they have to fill it out? So we get that feedback from every single kid.
And the problem is, even our most vulnerable populations don't even show up to school to enroll their kids, right? I mean,
Well, I'm saying the kid shows up to school at some point, they get signed up, and, okay, so say we do miss 10%, that's still a pretty good number, I think. I don't know, I'm just throwing an idea out there
I mean,
that's a little bit different,
But
but it's the
something to
same
think on.
thing.
I usually recommend anyone considering it, talk to as many kids as you can. I mean, that's what I did. I just went out and talked to kids, and I don't know, I think they like to disagree with me, so they're not looking to tell me what I want to hear most of the time, especially my kids. It's, you go talk to them, and that's what I did. And I mean, I was actually shocked. I'm like, I asked a kid, they're all gonna want to go to school less, right? No, they don't. They want to go more, and it really surprised me. That's when I started thinking about the year-round. I had kids telling me, my niece went to year-round school, and they had a year-round hybrid over in Reno.
Yeah.
And she loved it. She's like, oh man, that was the best. I didn't feel like I was ever at school because they had the breaks spread out so that like they did, and I never even thought about that stuff. So I mean, if people are thinking about it, I highly recommend. Obviously, we want to talk to parents and teachers and stuff like that, talk to people with different demographics, but talk to the kids. They'll surprise the crap out of you.
So one thing I can do for you is I can go back into the data. We had 427 students take the survey, and I can pull that data out and what their responses specifically.
Yeah, I'd love to see that too.
Okay.
I will say, for me, I always struggle on this topic because obviously my kids go to 4-day. I grew up going to school 5 days, my kids go 4-day. And it is a different community, as we've talked about, a different structure. But there are still a lot of challenges. My kids still miss a lot of school. They end up missing over 1 day. Our doctors aren't open on Fridays. We have to drive to Reno.
I was also gonna bring that up, like,
And then-
if you expect to get, I work at the hospital, it's a ghost town on
Yep,
Friday.
and then my kids, my oldest is in Littleton, like right now, we have a huge challenge where we get done at school at 3:30 and we are hauling butt to make it to practice and games, and it's late nights and it doesn't, so it's a hard discussion for me because I see the challenges that we go through, but again, I have to remember that it is different dynamics than in town. And my rural families would love for me to be like, yes, let's go 4 days, because that's what we're all used to out there. But it is a completely different dynamic in town. And so I really appreciate all of your guys' insight because you guys bring more of the perspective of the dynamics of town. So
Lonnie, I
just wanna say
actually
really
reached
appreciate
out
that.
to Robin Dunkhorst and talked to her, and she said that they do have the Fridays off because they do like the work-life balance.
Yep.
But that she would be willing to talk to doctors' offices. She couldn't promise anything, but she'd be willing to talk to them
Yeah, and
about
I think,
moving it to Mondays.
yeah, I mean, I
so
think if you're talking 350, or not 350, sorry, like 1,500 plus potential appointments at a hospital, we're good for about 90. So I mean, any day you do it, it's gonna fill up really fast, regardless of which providers are there or not. So it's a trip to Reno or something else, which Reno's not much different. You know, you'd have to talk to them as well. I talked to Lisa just this last weekend when she was in town, and she's like, I don't work Fridays. No one in my office works Fridays.
I see a lot of specialists and none of them work Fridays.
Yeah, so especially if you're seeing a specialist, most of them don't work Fridays, and that's a work-life balance. I think it's a preference, and you know, as adults they can do that, and you know, I don't necessarily have a problem with it. I can understand. I get a 3-day weekend. I take Mondays off. I actually bought it because like it just gives me another day to work on someone else's car. But it's one of those things that I get that. Everyone would like to have, most people would like to have a 410 schedule. You know, the problem is I'm not necessarily worried as much about that. And I don't want people to think I'm discounting the work-life balance. I'm worried about the kids. And I want the kids to benefit from everything I do on this board. I want the kids to benefit from. That's my sole purpose of being here. So that's why I brought up the stuff I did is like, if we're gonna have more discussions on this, obviously, you wanna load your discussions when you come talk to me how it's gonna benefit the kids. That is the number one thing I'm concerned about.
And so to kind of wrap it up, as Jenna pointed out, there are definitely pros and there are definitely cons that have to be weighed out. Nicole, did you have one more thing to add?
I was just gonna suggest something.
Go
ahead. Obviously, we have the pros and cons, like you said. Maybe at some point, obviously this year, it's not gonna happen, right? We are gonna turn our calendar in, we have huge changes coming. Maybe there needs to be a committee of some students, teachers, admin, those type of things, to have a conversation to maybe get a better idea about what is best.
I think we got a pulse, but I think we're still missing a lot.
Like maybe there needs to be some sort of committee or something to that effect, like similar to maybe what we threw together, but maybe more thought out type thing and moving forward.
Maybe not jump on the committee thing right this second and give our poor people that just have to deal with the K-6 shift, but you know.
Revisit the
conversation and do a committee to address a lot of those concerns.
Yeah, and I think, Melinda, too, it's just been a lot. You know, we've been through a lot here in the last.
Lori, you've seen me in this boardroom.
I know.
I've been through it with all of you guys,
I know you have.
and I just want to say too that most of the comments that I'm told is if we're making these changes next year, why don't we just do this with it? I mean, that's what's thrown out there too.
It would have been so, in my perspective, it would have been so overwhelming to try to do this at the same time.
Well, I was planning on bringing this to you guys back in October, before the middle school had all of its issues, and then I waited, and then I waited, and then I waited, and then finally I was like, I can't wait anymore.
Which is fair.
I
we have a lot of
We appreciate you
here, but
I tried.
I think you gave us a lot to think about and kind of toss around in our heads and.
I just want to give a shout out to the community who took the survey and provided all those responses.
Especially after having all the other stuff thrown
Well,
in.
and I've got a ton of responses from community members as well that have emailed me, hit me up on Facebook, all that kind of stuff. So I give them a ton of credit for.
And
this is
honestly,
opened up.
they're your constituents.
Yeah, this has
not
opened up a
meetings.
conversation that I assure you will continue. It's a continued conversation. It's not something that's necessarily gone away, so.
It's a very popular concept. Yeah, with families. It really is, yeah.
Thank you, Melinda.
Okay,
Thanks,
thanks,
Melinda.
guys.
Okay, so I think Mike's been hanging out waiting for us. Moving on to item 2, presentation of the FY27 tentative budget based on the state funds that's allocated to the pupil center funding plans for possible action.
All right. So I certainly know we've been at it for a while, but I just wanted to.
Now we get to do the fun stuff.
Yeah, exactly. Mike was hoping you guys would fall asleep. Yeah, he'll put you to sleep. Just a quick, really brief reminder, this is really that act of fiction as we talk about every single year when we do this. This is based on all preliminary numbers. As far as, at least this year, we know our TCFP funding piece. Usually we don't in the legislative year, but what we don't know technically is enrollment and how those numbers affect our information that Mike's about ready to provide. But just remember, this is tentative, and then Mike will be back here in a month or two to approve the final as we roll into the next school year. So Mike, I will let you go to town and explain everything to us. Thank you.
Okay, so first off, this is very rough draft, and there's a lot of changes going on with, eliminating different positions, not filling different positions.
Mike, can I have you speak up just a little bit? I do have trouble hearing you.
Okay,
I'm sorry.
I'll try.
You and Lonnie, I have trouble hearing him once in a while.
Oh,
Let's do
yeah.
that. I'll take your voice. I promise, Lonnie, I'm not turning you on.
It's okay, sometimes you should.
Okay, so I'm gonna do things a little bit different this time. Instead of going through line by line or different object codes or functions, the numbers are still kind of a work in progress, so I'm just gonna kind of go over a broad overview of the process I've been going through with the budget this year. So the first part, we'll start with the general fund again, which is on page 6. And the trend the last 2 years is that we use the projections in the state for our base funding. And consistently, we've been at least $500,000 short of those projections. So I was using some information from Colby, trends from the past few years, and I reduced our enrollment by a projected 50 students for next year. And that resulted in $35,770,000 projected revenue, which is about $1.5 million less than what the state had provided. It is a slight decrease of what we had budgeted for this year. But I felt it was important to go that route, and hopefully we'll be surprised, maybe our enrollment will be up, maybe not drop as much, and then we'll have to be able to put a little bit more in there. So I was using that revenue amount as kind of my driver for the expenditures to see where we had to get to. We're working a lot with Colby on where we can cut as far as the salaries and benefits. The result of that so far is, I believe it's right around $1.8 billion. 400 of that is related to school administrators. I don't have the breakout between the teachers, aides, custodians, different positions like that, but some of those numbers are reflected in the budget, others are not quite there yet. But the goal is to kind of get salary and benefits as close as possible, so then we know where we need to cut, or if we need to cut with services and supplies. So like I said, I'm not going to go over any specific details, but you can turn to page 10. There's total expenditures of $42,106,000, which is $50,000 higher than what we had budgeted for this fiscal year. And that result would be a decrease of $1,075,000 for our ending fund balance, which we believe is $75,000 at 4%. But like I said, there's a lot of reductions in salaries and benefits.
So
I think only about half of those are reflected in this budget so far. And that's gonna be throughout the entire year. At our least until our staff is set, we'll be adjusting the numbers accordingly.
You know, it's a book of fiction, but, ugh.
Keep going, Mike.
I'll give you a lot of credit.
Power through, Mike, power through.
Okay, so the next page, is on page 12, this is the expenditures for the special education fund. I didn't make any changes to revenue, so I'm not gonna discuss that really at all. Again, I didn't keep the staffing the same for this fund with the staffing column adjustments. I adjusted the services supplies a little bit based on the last couple of years of actual. And the result is total expenditures of $6.1 million, which is an increase of $300,000, which again, will end up in an increased transfer from the general fund. This is another area that we're going to be looking at, trying to figure out when there's more knowns on the needs of the students, things like that, where we can cut, what we need to have to provide, things like that. The only other fund I want to go over today is the debt service fund, just because I've never really discussed that with you very much. And that's on page 41. So this is the only fund that we have that actually gets property tax revenues. This number comes from the state, the very top one, the $3.8 million. That's a state projection, which would be a pretty big increase of what they projected for this year. So hopefully that works out.
We've had a lot of revenue, so property tax wise with the.
It's nice. One positive.
So our projected opening fund balance is 2.6 million, which brings us to available funding of 6.5 million. The debt service principal and interest payments for the upcoming year, those are actual amounts, which would be $1,094,866 of that is the new bonds that was issued last year. The remainder is the 2009 series, which we have 652,000 left to pay on that, and that'll be done in 3 years. So what we'd like to do with this fund is we want to keep 2 years worth of the debt service payments available at the end of the year. Any amount over that, we transfer into the bond fund to use for our capital projects. So we're projecting about 3.5 million available to transfer over to work on I think there's some roofing projects coming up. Grammar school, other projects around the district.
Definitely some more HVAC, get French forward, and like a few other.
Correct, that's, yeah.
Yeah.
So the only other thing I want to kind of add a little bit is for the upcoming years, the 2009 series, our payments every year is right around $230,000. The bonds that we just issued last year, we're going to pay right around $535,000 per year. That's all I have for tonight. Any questions?
Thanks, man.
Thank you.
Appreciate your work on all of
what we know.
Anybody have any questions for Mike?
No.
No, just thank you for all you do. I know
Yeah,
it's
thank
hard.
you, Mike.
I've given someone bullets with no shot in them.
Yeah, I think a lot of people don't understand, these are just fictitious numbers that we have to guess on, they're not something that we know what we're having yet, so.
So,
Your best guesstimate, or Mike does,
Yeah.
thank you for that.
go
I
ahead,
trust
Mike.
your guesstimate,
Yeah.
it was actually a bit conservative, which I appreciate too.
Okay, so if there are no more questions, I would entertain a motion.
I'll make a motion that we approve the fiscal year 20 tentative budget based on the state funds allocated through the people-centered funding plan.
I'll second.
It's been motioned and seconded. All those in
Second.
favor?
Aye.
Motion carries unanimously.
Thanks, Noah.
Thanks, Mike.
Thanks, Mike. Thank you, everybody.
Thanks, Mike.
All right, moving on to item 3, some good news, I hope. Discussion and possible action item to move Denio K-8 school from inactive status to reopen status for the 26-27 school year for possible action.
Yeah, so as I mentioned in my super report 2 weeks ago, or 3 weeks ago, I guess, Ron and I road tripped out to Denio. Took a school car, so we knew we would stop at the bar, which was a smart move on our part. But yeah, I ended up meeting with 11 families. Or I guess not 11 families, but probably 4 or 5 families, Ron, with it. They represented 11 students, yeah.
With the potential of 2 more from Crane possibly.
Yeah.
So,
And it wasn't even the 11 students that I met with at not Crick Ranch the year before. So I think those students still remain in the valley. They just didn't come to that meeting, and potentially when the schools reopen, that might entice them to come back and really help us out. So if you look at our policy, last year we had to move to inactive because I think we ended up with 2 kids at the school. And what our policy states is that by April 15th of each year, which a school is listed as inactive, the board shall review the status of the school and determine whether to continue inactive status or proceed with closure of the school. I mentioned in my monologue last time that Ron and I didn't make these people sign in blood or anything, but all of them expressed sincere interest that they want to come back to school if it's open. They would have their kids in school if it was opened, and I mean, we can only just go on that guarantee, but we do understand that there's at least 11 that have said, yeah, our kids will be there day one next year if we were to make this move tonight and reopen denial for the community, so.
And what was the minimum? 5, 7?
7.
Minimum 7.
Yeah,
Once it hits 5, then that's when we can have a discussion of closing.
yeah, so we're
well
We're well over, yeah, and again, there's still that other group of kids too, that I know some of them had been at the school, dropped out, or not dropped out, but went homeschool, and yeah, definitely not dropped
And then
out.
like
but-
we have that kindergartner in Arvada that's.
Yeah, and then we have the one young lady's
She's
kindergartner, we're kind of trying to decide where to put her, because right now we bus her all the way in from, not Leonard Creek, Bottle Creek Ranch.
Yeah,
So she's actually closer to Paradise, but she kind of,
2 hours
I don't
on
know,
the bus.
there's kids that are sitting on in that edge of that valley too, that could potentially add to that number, so.
Well, and I feel like the kids committing to go would have committed because, right, they obviously are on a distance ed option right now. So like they could very well have just said, no, we're gonna stick with what we have. So I appreciate the communication.
It was great, and they're new families to the community too. So several of them, like, I think the one family moved from Reno, and so they're a new family working on one of the farms there.
There was only one family member that was there, that had went to the school prior.
Oh,
The rest of them were all brand new.
Yeah.
And in fact, I threw Colby under the bus at one point. I says, hey, let's take him over. Have you guys ever seen the school? Of course, the one guy who had seen it, and the rest of them, no, we've never seen it. And so we loaded him up and took him over there, and man, their eyes were this big around, giant smiles. We took them through and showed them the classroom, and you could just see the kids just that were there, just already reaching for stuff. It was probably the most fulfilling moment as a board member I've ever had doing that day. It was
Sociality
fantastic.
that they're gonna get, that's what they're saying. Yeah.
Oh, and the one little mom, her grin was this wide, and she was more excited than her kids were. It
Well, I
was
love that,
fantastic.
I love that you made that suggestion to go to.
Yeah, that's awesome.
That's awesome. Lori?
Kobe, what would it take, what's it going to take to open that school, if we hope to open that school? Is it gonna be intense? I mean, is it gonna be very involved or just?
No, I think the staffing could potentially be an issue. I mean, it could be hard to get a teacher out there. We're lucky that the aide that works out there does have a sub-license. So in a worst case scenario, we could probably bribe Susan to take the school, but we would post the position and hopefully someone would apply and take that teaching job.
Mary
Transportation.
Jo's retired.
Yeah.
Yeah, so, okay.
Yeah, transportation could potentially be another issue. We've had trouble in the past finding bus drivers and keeping bus drivers out there, but Mary.
I have one.
Ooh, yeah.
Oh, yeah, and we have had Susan drive in the past too, and that's actually worked out. I mean, Susan's kind of a jack of all trades, thank God for us, but, we actually moved it a few years ago and had her start leaving from Leonard Creek, and I think we gave her a Suburban or something, Anthony, and she did the route in a Suburban, so, there's a few, issues to overcome, none of them significant, I don't think.
Okay,
I will say historically, like for Paradise, Denio, and Arvada, the rural teacher positions have been super easy to fill.
Yeah,
Like,
yeah.
no, they
Yeah.
haven't, because like when we had the third teacher position open in Arvada, we had multiple applicants. When we've had the teacher position open in Paradise, we typically have had multiple applicants. We haven't had to hire for Denio for a really long time, because we've had Mary Jo obviously, but like, I think Nicole, you've been here, it's
we've never had a problem filling the
rural.
Yeah.
teachers.
it's a ways out there. It's 100 miles, I think, isn't it?
Yeah, we had more of a struggle with Paradise than I thought we would this year when we opened that extra position out there, but, we did finally find somebody, so it just was open longer than I thought, but,
I think
yeah,
that-
Denio, I think I
Did we find
personally think
somebody
we
for
find.
Paradise?
I'll go out there right now.
Pull my camper down,
Pull my camper right out there.
For Paradise, I think part of it, from what I heard from teachers about why they didn't want to apply is the inconsistency of it.
Oh, yeah.
Because we've kind of had it taken away, and so they wanted that kind of consistency out there.
Yeah, fair.
We're gonna need a ramp for that portable. We borrowed it for the dilapidated one at Grass Valley, but we knew that we would have to buy one for the new one.
Okay.
So it was like, I think they were around $5,000.
Yeah, better than that, I mean, the school is clean, so
Yeah,
it's just smart to yeah.
And that's why I threw Colby on the buses. He'd never been there, so we went over and toured the facility, and it was like, white glove clean. It was beautiful inside.
The utilities probably had to keep on just weather-wise.
Yeah, we've
So
had
it's
everything on it. We've been paying a custodian to go there a couple hours.
We checked the faucets and the water. Everything was super clean. Everything worked, all the lights. that end seemed to me turnkey, it was like ready to go.
But nothing crazy then to reopen it.
No, nothing at all, other than, yeah, hopefully locating that teacher. That would be the only thing that I would say gives me, just some, not even fear, not even, just some angst, I guess, so, yep. But we have Susan.
Yeah, so we have someone that's been out there, just kind of a backup,
And has a sub license.
and has a supplement.
It's not her preference, that's not what she wants to do, but,
But if needed.
if needed, I think she, yeah. But we would post, probably tomorrow, Alicia's already got the denial position keyed up, so we'll have it posted and hopefully find somebody after approval tonight.
Does anybody have any further questions or comments? Ron, Colby, thank you for your work on this. That's awesome.
It was fun, Jeff. Always fun to go out there.
I would entertain a motion.
I make a motion to move denial K through 8 from inactive status to reopen status for the 2026-27 school year.
I'll second it.
It's been motioned and seconded. All those in favor?
Aye.
Passes unanimously. Thank you, everybody. Exciting news.
Yeah, that's pretty cool.
Yeah, it's cool. It was good.
That was gonna be close forever.
I was worried.
Moving on to item 4, discussion and possible action to revise HCSD policy 5225, attendance zones for possible action.
All right, I will actually turn this one over to Dustin. Anthony, I don't know if you would want to come up. I think he might reference you in some questions, maybe not.
Anthony's like, I'm tired of being up
You already got thrown under the bus once in that, so.
I wrote that.
No pun intended.
Yeah,
So Anthony and I worked on this, but I thought there was so much that hadn't been touched since 2006 that you've got the red line edits and you've got a real clean version. I would say just probably look at the clean version and then take the red line version home and go.
Okay.
And just, I think the biggest feedback for me will be like, I just kind of want to know, did I miss anything in the cleaner draft policy?
And I'll point out real quick, Jackson Mountain School existed at the time that this policy was adopted. So-
Wow. That's been a hot minute.
Yeah, so I don't know if there was discussion, because I was here then and it did not exist even in 2006. So I don't know if it just got left by the wayside or if they were considering bringing it back at one point, or I couldn't tell you. But just kind of reading through that, the first part, and again, I didn't want to change kind of the order of things too much, but the irony wasn't lost on me that McDermott was the first part of it. This just kind of lays out step by step which schools are attendance zones. So McDermott Combined Schools, grades K through 12, and then it kind of gets more specific into those rural schools that could potentially feed into McDermott High School. So those are listed as 9-12 under 3 and 4, and Denio area as well. So one minor edit will be to make Denio go to Winnemucca. So I think that was good.
Yeah, for our high school, right?
Yeah. So, under the bolded language is kind of critical for the stars and number 1 above. So students from those areas may attend school in McDermott or Winnemucca. However, there will be no transportation provided other than for grades 9-12 from Highway 95 or the 16-mile boundary that we used in the latest zoning map. To Lowry High School, no mileage or in lieu of payments. We do have some situations where contractually to get folks to the bus stop, we enter into those. Students from that second area, so Kings River and Denio, may attend school in Winnemucca under in lieu, and that's kind of the same stuff under in lieu of transportation agreements. Number 2, Orvada Elementary School, grades K-8. The Orvada area, North Dakota Road, those did not change, and south of Porcupine Ranch Road or milepost 130, or milepost 30, sorry. And then number 3, Kings River Elementary School, grades K through 8 is that Kings River Valley area. We didn't feel like we needed to get real specific there. Number 5, Denio Elementary School, grades K through 8, Denio area north to Oregon state line and west to Washoe County boundary. And then number 2, the area south of Denio to Bottle Creek turnoff and west to include the Black Rock Desert area. And then just note that Denio students will need to come to range bus stops on Highway 140 for pickup or delivery.
How far is that for, say, Leonard Creek, Ron? It's quite a ways, isn't it?
About 20 miles.
20 miles?
And it's all gravel road.
Yeah.
Well, there's a little paved chunk at the front, but the rest of
Yeah.
it's
Is
gravel.
Leonard Creek the farthest?
No.
Anthony?
And that's, what, 30 cents a mile if we had a cow there?
Yeah, for them to drive.
What's the farthest?
It's 10 cents a mile, it's $10 a day for a parent to drive to the bus stop, so that they can get reimbursed for it. But, like, yeah, we've never had a problem with any of them driving them out to Highway 140. You try and take that bus on one of those roads, we're never getting turned around, we're breaking everything.
Tires are old.
We tried one time and it lasted 2 days.
I just wondered.
It's fair.
There's a system of ranches, and the last one is basically right on the Black Rock. Like, you're almost closer to Pyramid Lake than Denial.
I think that's where that kindergartner comes from, isn't it, Ron?
Yeah,
Yeah, from all the way up there. I think they're on that last ranch.
that's the farthest bus stop that we have. That kindergarten.
Her mom drives, I think her mom drives an hour each way just to get to the bus stop.
Huge valley.
Yeah. And then
Huge.
another 30, 45 minutes on the bus stop.
Under number 6, Paradise Valley is the area south to the 16-mile road marker that we've been, number 7, Sonoma Heights Elementary School, grades K through 6 now, are the areas. We kind of tried to get the major roads, so there are a couple little spots that are in the boundary that we can't really capture in policy, but areas west of Highland Drive from Moon Lane to Hardgrave Lane, and south of East Winnemucca Boulevard to Interstate 80, and south of Interstate 80 to Potato Road roughly. Number 8, Grass Valley Elementary School, grades K through, that should be K6.
K6, yeah.
I will note that change. All areas from Moon Lane southwest on Grass Valley Road and West Winnemucca Boulevard area from Rose Creek Road to Buffalo Creek Road, and Grass Valley south to the Persian County line. Number 10, French Ford Elementary School, grades K through 6, Jumbo Road area out Highway 95, Golconda area and east, Lower Paradise Valley area south of 16 Mile Road, and east of Highland Drive to Water Canyon Road.
So that's like all the
So that,
Offenhauser.
yes.
And I actually have, when he's done, I have an actual
I was gonna ask if you had a
map. No, I actually can pull a map up for you guys.
That'd be awesome.
Yeah. Yeah.
Because they're so popular.
I've seen it.
Water
Yeah,
Canyon
I'll
Road,
pull
is
it.
it just those students that live on the other side of
Yeah.
that Water Canyon?
Yeah, it would.
I've
We
seen
can,
it.
we can even kind of play with it. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, I'll include
We
it.
might want to see.
Yeah, and we have Andy stuff.
That's enough.
Winnemucca Junior High, grade 7 through 8, is Winnemucca area, Golconda area and east, and Lower Paradise Valley area south of 16 Mile Road. Albert Lowry High School, grades 9 through 12, all Winnemucca zoned areas. And Valmy, grades K through 12, may attend Lander County under an approved tuition agreement. We still, I think, have a couple of
Do
those.
we have two?
Yeah, we have some.
Still?
Yeah, I think two.
No,
I have to
there's
look back, but
Don't we vote on that
Some
every year?
years-
yeah, we vote on
Some
some.
years we don't have any.
We do have some this. We voted on some. this year.
Yeah, I remember this year.
Yeah.
For a while, we've had a couple.
And then Persian County out, way out Grass Valley would attend Grass Valley School.
That's after the Calabar, correct?
Yes.
And they bus their own kids in, right?
Yes.
Yep.
Yeah, so here's the actual routes on a map. I can zoom in, zoom out, so just let me know what you want, but anything in red right here is French Ford Zone. And one of the reasons, and Anthony can probably explain this better than I could, but we really tried to include a lot of these kids here because they can hit that East 2nd Street and then come through that back way to French Ford, kind of by Boys and Girls Club and Wingers, and it flows the traffic a lot better. And then when we zoom in and we talk about the kids that we moved into Sonoma, I know it's crazy how small Sonoma is and they still have.
If you hit that little eyeball on the Stevens one, it'll pop up all the dots, and you can see how, all the way at the bottom.
We're at.
The bottom where it says students, right here on your,
All the
I
way,
can't see where you guys are pointing. Sorry.
right below that.
right there.
Oh, right there, gotcha.
Oh,
It
yeah.
shows you how many kids is like in those areas.
Yeah, and so we figured these kids that live in this area over by the museum and some of those areas can actually just shoot up Ridge Street, right, to get to Sonoma or up Hanson, I guess it would. I'm not great with roads. I know like where people live. But yeah, so when you zoom in, it's crazy how many kids live in this whole area of Sonoma. I mean, they're the same amount as these larger zones. So, sorry, zoom out. There you can see our population clusters and where the majority of our students live. And this over here reflects how many kids would be in each school site. So red's French Fork, yellow Sonoma, purple is Grass Valley.
Did we get a lot of people converting their addresses during conferences like we thought?
We did, yeah, and I really gotta point out Noah and Anthony, every time I walk down there, they're knee deep in spreadsheets, and there's papers just thrown everywhere, and yeah, it looks like a mess down there, but they've been working really hard to make sure that addresses are confirmed also, so.
We went through every single kid, every classroom, and made sure it matched. And we found.
Thank you guys. Seriously.
No, that's awesome, and honestly, just having the equality of each school, the numbers in each school being equalized and balanced, that is huge. I think that's going to be a huge difference.
And the county was a huge help with helping me make these maps, and then they can alter differently where we can zoom in more, do other stuff, so Andy helped me out a lot with building those, and so.
No, that's awesome. Thank you so much.
Yeah, so that other question, that boundary line's drawn right here by Highland, that would go to Sonoma, and then really everybody else to the right of Highland goes to French Fork in this area. And then golf course area and an area like Ballard and stuff would still go to Sonoma, where they already attend.
And then that last part is just to reflect the reality of the transfers. We wouldn't really technically under open enrollment have any variances anymore. It would just be true that they transfer in that period coming up. And I think the consensus is that we're going to have to account for some of that transferring because of the rezoning and things like that. Particularly with our special populations, like if you've been you have a relationship at K through third now with a teacher, it probably makes more sense to keep them there through 4th, 5th, 6th grade and continue that relationship with our most special needs kids. So, and that's just one population. I mean, we have some situations. I was talking to one parent out of MAGA Trucking this week that said, "Can I just my ones at Lowry? Do I have to be at Sonoma, or can I get potentially into French Fork? Because that would be convenient for drop off, right?"
But it all goes based off that, whether or not we have room.
Yeah. A lot of enrollment we know.
Yeah, so there are some considerations there that we're gonna have to drill down a little bit more at the school level, but and then the other part is just recognizing that open enrollment that's going into effect next year, and then transfers granted within town. Attendance zones under open enrollment processes will require parents and guardians to transport their students, and some students may be required to attend a school outside of his or her attendance zone. If we get a big pocket one way, we're just gonna have to make some hard calls.
So Michael, I have a question. I know in the past with variances, we've always allowed our teachers to kind of say, hey, this is where I'm at, I'm teaching, this is convenient. Are we still just honor that, or are they gonna have to apply? Like, how is that gonna work with the new bill?
Yeah, we've already actually honored that. So
Okay,
they sent
I
a
just wanna
survey
make
out to
sure.
all teachers, and they've already factored that into the numbers. So
Okay,
the teachers were able to go in and report what school they wanted to go to.
Okay.
Because I do think that's a benefit that we should continue for our teachers, just because
Absolutely.
how difficult would that be if you had your kid clear over here? So that's, I'm glad you asked that.
Yeah, that's a good question. Yeah, it's already been factored in, so kudos to them for doing that one
Thank
too.
you guys for doing that too.
And truly, those three have done a phenomenal job. Writing this policy would have been a nightmare to them, so they made my work much easier.
What I want to point out too, and I'm sure he hates that I'm going to do this, but Andy Heiser also, because we took our information over to him and double checked it on his software also to make sure we were accurate. He printed out all those large maps for us to see, and so Andy was actually super instrumental in making sure we had accuracy also. And I'm sure he wants to kill me for pointing that out. But.
Well, and everything we did matched up exactly with what he had, so we had nothing was different. We were to the number on the kids.
Which is awesome. That's awesome. Lori?
One thing I don't see on here is that once a student transfers, we don't have variances anymore, but they transfer to school, they have to stay at that school, right?
Yeah, and that's actually in our open enrollment policy. Yeah.
That's
we
in writing somewhere.
Yeah.
Okay.
And that's in that policy that we need to.
Yeah, earlier this year, yeah.
I remember.
And we'll probably have to bring back at some point too, because it just changes nonstop at the state level, so.
Anybody have any further questions or comments? Good work, guys.
Yeah.
Thank you.
I will
Thank you,
I will
guys.
make that change to K6, that was just an oversight on my part.
We have to hear it one more time.
No, because this is a revision, the
Oh.
policy's already in place, so.
So I would entertain a motion.
I'll make a motion to approve the revision of the HCSD policy 5225 attendance zones.
I'll second.
Been motioned and seconded. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Motion carries unanimously. Thank you, everybody. Thank you guys so much for all your work.
Thank you, guys.
Yeah.
We love you guys. Seriously, thank you.
Moving on to item 5, discussion and updates on Winnemucca Grammar School renovation.
Great, thank you. Yeah, just a couple updates and then I'll just open it up to the board for comments or questions they have or things they want me to research. But I reached out to John Burhans today because I know we had talked last time about how we were gonna need architectural to weigh in on this. He is waiting, he's talked to H&K and what H&K is actually waiting for is the state, I gotta make sure I wrote this down, State Historical Preservation Society to weigh in. And so I think their H&K is trying to interface with them to ensure that they're doing the work accurately. And that'll weigh into their proposal as far as when they submit it to us, what those architectural costs will be. So John thinks, I don't know, he said apparently the State Historical Preservation Society is pretty slow on getting back to him, but that would be what we're waiting for as far as H&K. And then they plan on coming out here and visiting the school and doing a walkthrough like everybody
I'll
else
call
does.
the Preservation Society. I've got some contacts with them and ask them if they're gonna try to get them to move more.
I can get you the name. John mentioned the name and off the top of my head, Lonnie, I can't
I'll call
remember.
them specifically, because that's, the one thing I'd like to make sure on that is if John's understanding is that they are going to, if he's assuming they are gonna be talking to him, or if he's actually reached out, if they've reached out to him.
I can tell you they have,
Okay.
and it's waiting, and then, again, sorry, I don't remember the name, but I'll get it for
Just
you.
email it to me.
Yeah.
Because I've been in a lot of discussions with them already, so with several different people.
Okay, perfect.
How about the grants that we applied for?
Haven't heard on those yet, so I would expect the one with, Amity to come back pretty soon. We thought there'd be about a 1-month timeline on that. We knew the other two were gonna be lengthy. Like, we think that's probably 6 to 8 months as far as the turnaround time on that. Yeah, those will be a lot longer out, but
Okay.
I would think, and I know that Amity, representative for Amity emailed me a couple weeks ago and said they were moving in, and I don't know all the names of the stuff, so I apologize, but moving it in to the next phase of discussion at the federal level, so.
Yeah, I was talking to a man, he's from Reno, and he grew up here in Winnemucca and was very interested in what was going on with the grammar school. So I told him about those grants, and he said, I'm going to call.
Good.
So he's calling the office, and that might be something that we want to put out there, you know?
Yeah, because the
wanna
gentleman
hear
that I
from
spoke
us.
to, his rep, emailed me and said, hey, just before we move it on to this next level, I just want to confirm there is a match to this. And I'm like, yeah, we have bond money to match
Yeah,
this. So
yeah.
he did reach out and I can't remember the name of the next level name of it too either.
You know, the squeaky wheel gets the grease, you know?
I think it would be absolutely helpful for anyone. I've already written a letter to Amity's office specifically and for the other two. I did a joint letter for the other two. My father got involved with it as well and spoke directly with Amity and folks in his office. Anybody who who wants to advocate for the grammar school, I think you should call all of your reps and say, look, we've applied for this, just so they know, it's Amity, Rosen, and
Masto.
Cortez Masto. Yeah. So we have applications with all three of them. So anybody who wants to advocate for the grant money for these schools, I highly recommend giving them a call and being really nice to them and asking them to help us out and tell them what that school means to us and to Winnemucca and to the state of Nevada.
So yeah, if we could get that out there, I think that'd be really good.
Great, thank you. And then the last one, I know at the last meeting, there were some questions around just our liability of having adults in that building for the time. I think it was potentially you, maybe then Nicole that asked or
Yeah,
something,
and
but.
just outside liability, like with the, do we need to put up?
Yeah, so I thought it'd be great since we have Rob here today, and Rob and I showed up, he showed up a little early and we walked around the school, and so he was able to kind of see everything you guys have seen in this, so. I know, Rob, what were your thoughts on the liability of having adults in and out of that building and just around the exterior?
I would minimize it to the extent possible, just looking at some of those loose bricks and the facade that looks like it's about to fall off. I wouldn't want to take any chances, so
That's kind of what we were thinking last week.
Just signage, is that appropriate, or do we?
unless you want to throw up a construction fence, which would be even better, but signage at least.
I would rather do whatever means it's gonna be, like you said, the construction fence or whatever you.
You may have some issue with a big ugly construction fence across the front of that building.
Yeah, you might be able
We
to
may have
just
to-
use
yeah,
some
we-
tape on the bars in front. I
Yeah, we
think.
may have to spend a little more money on a decent fence. I know the people who live in that neighborhood, so.
Yeah, I think.
And I don't think we want to have a building that looks like a construction site either until it is a construction
Yeah, but
site.
we also don't want a liability on us or.
No, I agree, but I mean, I'm just saying, we may want to consider the type of fence we put up, in that neighborhood.
I think we can do work with just using the railing out front, potentially, and signage on some of that, and then some.
Yeah, and like all the
blockade
back
on it.
fences, so
The
people
back.
don't,
Climb the fence.
climb the fence is
Yeah.
my.
I mean,
I would tell you, I mean, just living in that neighborhood, there are so few kids that live in that neighborhood now. It's kind of interesting. I mean, just from me growing up there, it was all kids, but there's not a whole lot, and I haven't seen a single person in that playground since it's closed.
Yeah.
But it's good to put signage up. I totally agree.
Could we just cordon off certain areas? I mean,
I
Well,
think
it's all,
the
it's
whole
all, everything's fenced except for the
Everything
front of the
except the
building.
front.
Yeah, and there's railing all across the front, so I think you, like I said, you could work with the railing and potentially put up something in between the gaps and then put a sign up there saying no cross or
a
something.
fence inside
And
the
then it looks
grade
more natural.
Potential, like I
between
said,
those two buildings.
I'm not concerned about what people think at this point. We need to make
Yeah.
sure it's safe and that people aren't going to be like walking around it and bricks falling on them.
a temporary construction fence, I assure you, if people are getting in there now, they're still gonna get past a temporary construction.
Yeah, but our liability is less.
Putting a decent fence up would be nice, and I don't, if we put a temporary construction fence up and someone climbs in there and gets hurt, does our liability change?
It's not a magic wand, no.
Not at all.
Like sign of a waiver. Pretty much away.
I think the signage will be the most important piece,
Signage
like
would
we
be the
all
most
know
important
too.
thing.
Yeah,
You
all
know,
around.
Yeah, can get on work on that.
Yeah.
And maybe where those
Yeah, let's
bricks
just- let's
are
just get some-
coming
some
off the side,
crime
we
scene
just
tape it up
block
there.
that off with
Neighbors will
something
find,
so
sure.
that,
Okay,
Yeah.
people can't get right where.
yeah, right where that could happen, right?
Yeah, that's what I'm saying, just cordon off some certain areas.
Yeah.
Most dangerous, yeah.
Yeah.
I'll make you guys work on that, so.
Okay.
No, and then there was really just anything the board needs me to research, find out, anything else left. I just really wanted to give this time to you guys to let me know if you need me to do anything.
When was the last time we talked to McElhaney about the status of the plans?
I submitted it right after we approved it at the last meeting, so I think, what do you say, 3 months that he thought, or
He
3
said
to 5
he
months?
started 6 weeks, but that's why I wouldn't mind having at least a monthly update from McElhaney on their progress, because we've had communication concerns in the past with
Yeah, for
McElhaney.
sure. So I can get that update for you.
I do think he said 3 to 6 months.
Yeah,
He
so I
said
was
3 to 6
thinking
months.
soon.
So just a quick update.
Yeah. I can do that.
Thank you, Colby. Any further questions or comments? Okay, seeing none. Moving on to item 6, discussion and possible action to cancel the regular board meeting on July 14th, 2026. Possible action.
Sweet, well, another good news one, I hope, but this is just one we regularly, looking back, it feels like you guys have done this for several years. I know you guys did this last year, my first year on the board, but what this does is well, number one, summers get a little quiet, but number two, it just allows all of us to get that extra time away to spend time with our families, not tied down to a meeting in the middle of summer potentially, and just allows everybody to rest and recharge, knowing we head into those August meetings and they get pretty busy and pretty packed. So this would just be consideration to cancel that second board meeting in July. I think,
When is the first one?
yeah, now that I'm looking at it.
Is that the
That is-
first?
I was gonna say, I
I
think that's
was
the
gonna
first
say.
one.
First one might be the first one, might be the first one,
Okay.
excuse me.
Yeah, that
So
is like-
first one and not the second one. Yeah.
Historically, we always
Cancel
cancel
the
the first one.
yeah.
Okay.
Sometimes
First,
it's
not
really
second, I
close to the fourth one.
Yeah,
Yeah.
usually, that's why I was like.
Yeah, so first and not the second, because the second one would be more important than coming back in late July, so. First one on July 14th.
Any questions or comments? Seeing none, I would entertain a motion.
I'll motion to cancel the regular board meeting scheduled on July 14th, 2026.
I'll second it.
It's been motioned and seconded. All those in favor?
Aye.
Motion passes unanimously. Thank you, everybody. Moving on to item 7, discussion and information on compliance with the open meeting law during board reports.
Okay, and thank you. And I know we kind of begin this already, but I'd like to provide Rob an opportunity to share some of the research he's done. He had texted me and asked me to pull up a couple policies, so Rob, I'll work on that as you begin to share. Would you like the manual pulled up first, or what do you want?
The first thing I think would be, yes, the manual.
Okay.
Actually, no, I'm sorry, my email with Greg on, that should be first.
Where's that one at, Rob? Is that?
I don't know, I emailed it, did it not make it to the agenda?
No, I don't.
Okay.
It's that one, I think you replied.
It wasn't on the attachments.
Okay, I can just read from it then, it's not a big deal, I've got it printed out here. Okay, yeah, it doesn't seem like it made it to the agenda, no big deal. I'd like to start off by saying that what we're doing here is somewhat irregular. I typically don't give legal advice in an open board meeting. Usually that's done through either a confidential memo to the board or in a closed session of the board. The open meeting law does have a carve out for the board to receive legal advice in closed session, but it's not a big deal. This isn't anything highly controversial. It's not a big deal that we are waiving our attorney-client privilege by having this discussion. It's just basically the state of the law and best practices, which I can sum up in really a simple 4-part story. But before I get to that, I want to assure everybody that there was absolutely no nefarious intent on my part by passing on what I had recently learned. I'm not trying to muzzle anybody. I have no reason to want to do that. It was just me passing along what I had learned to be best practices in the open meeting law. And in a minute, I'm going to explain to you where that advice came from. I was not trying to unilaterally restructure your agenda for you. I don't have the power to do that, nor do I want that power. And we'll talk about that at the end, but it's not within my power to do anything of the sort. So I mentioned my 4-part story. The first part starts with me having received an email back in January from Pool Pact, alerting me to a training that was coming up in February. And I'm sure you're all familiar with Pool Pact, but just as a reminder, and for those in the audience that aren't as familiar, Pool Pact is a state organization that is divided into 2 parts. The pool part is the part that is basically your insurance to protect you from liability. If your district was sued for, I don't know what, discrimination of some sort, whatever type you can think of, religious, racial, sexual, whatever, and you needed an attorney to litigate a defense for you, because you pay into Pool Pact, they will provide an attorney for you. Oftentimes, attorney Ann Alexander from Reno has been assigned to you guys. Some of you might be familiar with her. That's the pool half of Pool Pact. The Pact half of the acronym is basically workers' comp. If you have an employee who gets hurt on the job, and in lieu of suing the district, they go through Pool Pact, just like private employees go through workers' compensation. So that's what this organization is all about. So when they send me an email stating that we're going to have a webinar, actually it was more than a webinar, it was live and in person in Pioche, which I thought was an interesting place to organize a meeting. Not a huge population base, but that's where they had it for whatever reason. But it was offered as a simulcast webinar, so I signed up for it. The title of the training was Open Meeting Law, Board Governance, and Board Ethics Training. I know that Sabrina attended remotely. Did anybody else in here happen to know about it or attend? No.
I knew about it.
It was emailed out.
Okay, all right. So I'm glad you were made aware of it. I understand not everybody can take time out of work to attend these types of things, but I'm really glad that Sabrina was able to. So after I signed up for the webinar, I got a confirmation email, like of course you do, and it gave me a little bit more information about what the training was going to be about, and I'll just read to you from it. This will be a special training-only session focused on education and best practices. Training will be conducted in Pioche in person, as well as available via Zoom. Topics covered will include overview of Nevada's open meeting law and recent updates, board member ethical duties, conflicts of interest, disclosure requirements and governance, and practical guidance on agendas, public comment, minutes, and avoiding inadvertent OML violations. All really good stuff. You can see why it caught my eye. The presentation was being given by Wayne Carlson. Anybody know Wayne in this room? Yeah, Wayne Carlson's the guru, right? He's the executive director of Pool Pact. He might be the only other person in the state who is more concerned about and spends more time thinking about school board liability than I do. And that's because if you have a situation of potential school board liability, it's his organization that might be on the hook for a very large payday. So he, of course, is very concerned about liability, and he is a great source of information for how to best run your school district. So that was part one of my story. Learned about the training and attended the training. At the training, what I heard was Wayne say that periods of board member comment or board reports are to be discouraged. In fact, it would be best if they didn't exist at all. And that caught my eye, that caught my ear. I had never heard anybody say that before, and I thought that was interesting, and I wanted to know more about that. And so instead of turning to Wayne, I actually sent an email to Deputy Attorney General Greg Ott. He's in the AG's office, and he is an attorney, and he is probably the foremost authority in the state of Nevada on the open meeting law. In fact, if you were to receive an open meeting law violation, Greg would probably be assigned to your case because he knows it backward and forward and will be able to tell the complainant right away whether or not there's any substance to the complaint. And so as I mentioned, I emailed Greg, and this is what I said to him. Hi, Greg. Pool Pact gave an OML training this morning. I wrote him the same day. I think I heard Wayne say that an agenda item called board comments is not sufficiently clear. His opinion was that the agenda needs to say exactly who is going to speak and what they plan on saying. Both of my school district clients, Humboldt and Elko, utilize a board comment section where they basically go around the table and trustees speak about what's on their mind. What is your guidance on this issue? I want to hear from him. And he wrote me back also same day, about an hour later. And Greg said, hi, Rob. I'm generally aligned with the Pool Pact training and discourage board comments or commissioner comment when talking about county commissioners items because I agree that it doesn't provide adequate notice to the public of what might be discussed. So I try to advise boards to stay away from those things if at all possible. I am more comfortable with couching that as future agenda items, and that's in quotes, as a topic, so that board members can publicly alert the rest of the board to items that merit full board discussion. I hope that's helpful. Let me know if you want to further discuss or have any other ideas or solutions. So that was what I got back from the person who I really respect in this area of the law. And in addition, and the part I didn't read in that email is he directed me to, and this is part 3 of my story, he directed me to what is basically the open meeting law Bible in the state of Nevada. Some of you might have this, some of you may have looked at it before. It's the Nevada Open Meeting Law Manual that unfortunately was drafted way back in, thank you for opening that up. Turn to page 63, Colby.
It hasn't been updated since 2019.
You're right, it's old, but there have been periodic memo updates that have come out of the AG's office for things that either vary or expand upon this rather large document. It's 120 pages long, but Nicole's right. It was first drafted in 2016. It was updated in 2019. It can stand to be updated again, but the section we're about to look at, according to Greg Ott, who directed me to this section, is still good law. And so if we look at page 63, the section that he said supports his opinion on how these things should be handled is on page 63, subsection B near the top, okay. It's 63 in the document, not 63 in the PDF. So if you scroll down.
I thought you were there.
Yeah, I thought you were there, because it was like
It was,
I think it was item.
Right there. No, you
yeah,
Yeah,
about
we
the
were
whole
there.
business.
scroll down. Stop right there. Okay, B. What B says is generic items such as reports or general comments by board members invite trouble because discussions spawned under them may be of great public interest and may lead to deliberations or actions without the benefit of public scrutiny or input. Generic items should be used sparingly and carefully, and actual discussions should be controlled tightly. Matters of public interest should be rescheduled for further discussion at a later meeting. So that's what the Bible says about what we're talking about here. And again, that was part 3 of my story about how we got to where we were at the last meeting. And believe me when I say I had no idea it was going to be such a passionate and hot button topic for you all. I didn't know that. I didn't expect that. It caught me off guard then, and it caught me off guard today when I walked in. And right out of the gate, it was almost like a continuation of the last meeting, the level of passion about this topic. But like I said, all I can do is deliver to you my legal advice. You're the ones who decide what to do with it. So the last part of my story, part 4, is that after learning all this, I called Colby and Sabrina to discuss what I had learned.
Well, it was during our agenda meeting.
That's right. That's exactly what it was. We have an agenda meeting. Before we set the agenda, we have a meeting to talk about what should be on it, how it should be drafted. And it was at one of those meetings that this topic came up, and found out that Sabrina had watched the same webinar. So we had a good conversation about what we heard. I told her about my email with the AG's office. I told her about the open meeting law manual. And we brainstormed how to best put this advice and best practice into practice. And what we came up with was.
And Abe was part of this discussion as well.
Abe was there as well, that's correct. And what we came up with was maybe the better way to do this is to restructure it as committee reports and future agenda items. I don't know, someone said earlier in this meeting, I don't know what, we don't have committees or they're not
And
well.
so, can I kind of step in on
Please
this?
do.
So where the committee thing came in is because Robin said, we had discussed about how in this training, they said to just do future agenda items. And I said, well, hold on, because board reports is typically where like NASB reports, truancy reports, when there are special little committees like how they had the committee for the K through 6. So anything basically that the board was involved in, that we normally would report back, I said, well, where would we report these? And so then Abe, Rob, and I kind of had this discussion of what can we add in to kind of keep us out of what, like this, the pool pact was saying, but still give us a place to report on those things. And so that was kind of part of the discussion.
Right?
Huh?
Like most of it's typically celebration.
We visit schools, we do things within the community that might have some effect on the district, or we're representing our seat in the community, and talk with folks. We hear from folks and they ask us to, bring stuff up. We don't bring up action items. And generally we check each other if we are trying to bring up action items. We're not bringing stuff up that we're gonna work on or complain about or whatever. We're generally thanking each other for a good conversation and then bringing up the things that we are doing as individual board members in our community. That's what comes up on board reports, and generally that's all it is. And frankly, it's a good time for us also to kind of leave the meeting on a good note rather than us arguing with each other all day. That's what we're coming up with. So we're not putting out. If I have an agenda item, I'm going to send it up the chain like we're supposed to. We already have a function to add things to future agendas. I'm on the insurance board. I'm not going to sit here and bore everybody with insurance discussions that we just had, or that I'm going to have tomorrow, and I'm going to have the next day, and probably for the perpetuity of my life, the way insurance goes. So I'm not going to ever have an opportunity at the end of a meeting to speak.
No,
That's not acceptable to me, nor is it acceptable to any other board member that voted to put this back on.
But that's what we were trying to capture though, is honoring like the pool pact and the language to protect us, but still trying to figure out a way, and maybe committee reports wasn't the right, like, way to capture it,
Why
but
didn't you guys just
still-
communicate that at the beginning then?
That,
That would have been so simple, but you acted on your own. I mean,
There was,
from the moment that you get either elected or appointed, it is drilled into your head as a board member, you have two powers. Your power of your vote and your power of Colby's eval. That's it. Like, you just don't get to do whatever you want at any point in time. So on something like this, like, communicate would have fixed everything.
so that's where I'm at. The communication of this, Rob, and I'm not blaming you at all, you're a legal counselor, the communication should have came from our board president and it did not. The failure to communicate why we got here should have happened either at the beginning of that meeting or a meeting prior to that, hey, we're going to make this change. It was not. It felt like an ambush. It felt like we weren't allowed to speak when I was trying to piggyback off of Lori's legislative stuff, because let's be real, I'm the one who knows the most about the legislative stuff. I'm the one who's been the most involved. So therefore, that wasn't a discussion about what was going on in the board. That was a legislative discussion.
it was a report, I was reporting.
And I was giving facts
A
of
meeting
what
that I
happened in the past. And then I was shut down. That's where I was angry. Because I have that knowledge. Lori doesn't. She asked me a question. It didn't affect anything that we were voting on or any sort of stuff that was going on. And committees, for me, we don't really have committees. We have insurance committees. We have NASB representatives. Those are our committees. What about a school visit? That's not a committee. So for me, maybe it could have been more. It needs to be worded differently. There has to be a different thing. I also can say that this isn't the first time that something wasn't communicated or done, and we've all just had to be like, okay, it's fine. It happened in the past with the previous superintendent. I've said before in a board meeting, I don't want to be backdoored, or I don't want backdoor conversations. Things are not being communicated. They are now, very much so. Colby communicates 100% with us. I feel like as our representation and as our president, it should have been communicated to us in a different way than this. And now we have anger toward Rob, which really probably didn't even need to happen, right? Because that all could have just been communicated. That could have been a memo, that could have been an email, that could have been anything.
A board report, weird.
It could have been anything besides what it was. And I understand the protections. I can tell you that I sat here in a meeting at the end of the last year and I called my legal counsel, my own, because of the liability that I felt that we didn't vote properly on something, that discussions were made, and that I wanted to see where a liability for an action item put on me as a person. I did that myself. So those are things that I would really had hoped at that point that you would be here, which I've expressed that. There's a mechanism for you to be here more. I understand that. But as far as this goes, it can be worded differently. We could have old business, we could have new business. Committee reports just doesn't fit. And the way that it was communicated out, it literally made it feel like, oh, sorry, you don't get to talk. And that's how it was expressed by you as our president, and that's how we all felt. Bottom line. I don't know everybody, but I know a few of us felt that way.
And that's noted. I can only do with what I know, and I'm still learning all the time, and I am listening to your concerns. Like, I'm not trying to shut anybody down when you express this to me right now. Like, all I can do is take it and learn. And
but I think my problem is I have given you that input over the years.
But I mean, on the, like, this specific thing,
Yes,
like, it
the
never,
communication is
because Abe and I talked about it, like, with Rob in the board thing, and Abe and I talked about it after that. Neither one of us realized this would, like, it never occurred to either one of us that was something that we should have reached out to everybody for. And I apologize for that, but I cannot.
I think that it came to a head. I think it was the straw that broke the camel's back, because we haven't been, the communication between our president, Madam President, and I respect you as that, has not been there. You can look at my phone, I have not one email or one text from you or a phone call, ever. and I've been on the board 5 years. And so I think it was the straw that broke the camel's back, and it just became explosive. And because there has not been any communication with the board, it's like, we feel like, you know what's going on with the superintendent. Colby's been great, he's been very transparent, but previous times, and then we were just told what you felt we needed to know, or we got to get to know. Does that make sense? Like, it was almost a privilege that we got to know that much.
And
And then we find out all this other stuff from people downtown even. And then, yeah, I think that it just came to a head, that's all. And
Well,
Rob, you got caught.
in this particular piece of open meeting law, I mean, I'm the guy that gets to go to the open meeting law function at every single function we go to. I take the short straw and I go. I've seen this 6-7 times.
Yeah.
From the same guy. So it's,
Yeah.
you know, and when John was here, John just says, you know, at the end, you should say, I have nothing to add. From a legal aspect, it makes absolute sense that you guys would prefer us, honestly, not to say anything. There'd be no liability, right? I mean, perfect world, of course. That's not gonna happen. But, you know, so, you know, we sometimes we just, I mean, honestly, tonight I was gonna say I have nothing further to add, even though I went through all that in the beginning of the meeting too. It's not that I don't have, I don't wanna add something every time. It's that I wanna have the option to add something if I do. And I think with the stuff that we are going through right now, I think it's very important. I think it's very important that we thank each other for the robust conversations that we have in this boardroom. I think it's important we thank the folks that come here and spend their time throughout the meetings and do all the hard work that they do. And that was our time to do that. So if you want to put it, you know, long story hour, whatever you want to call it. But I said, if you call it committee, and I'm talking out of committee, then I think that's more of a liability because then I'm straying completely off of what the agenda is, if you get my drift.
And so that would mean, from what you're telling us then, Rob, is if I go to the legislature next year, I plan on going every time anything relative to education, I can't come back to this board and tell them about it. Or I can't communicate that to them.
I wouldn't say that that's true. I kind of felt like that was going to be captured by the committee report language, but maybe like Sabrina said, that wasn't the best way to phrase it.
And there's other aspects too, like I have some stuff in my paper here, and a lot of it's for Anthony. At 16 Mile Road, there's a 1.9 million unit chicken farm going in. The grind plant to feed this farm is going out Grass Valley. So we have another mine that's drilling and stuff out farther out with 7 troughs.
Yeah.
So there's a huge transportation load that just increased on top of everything that's going on. That's the kind of stuff that we share at board report, stuff that we learn in our areas that could impact the district, and just to give everyone a heads up, like, hey, this is coming. You know, that kind of stuff.
And I guess if Greg Ott were sitting here, what he would say is that should be put on the agenda because there might be a person who is very interested in that topic who would like to be here to hear what you have to say, but didn't get a chance to because it wasn't on the agenda.
Then they can come to the next meeting at public comment and address it.
It's not the way it's supposed to work, but I understand what you're saying.
But then for me, when you say that, that's nitpicking everything that we say, in my opinion.
I don't know how we can script a meeting that tight.
Yeah, I guess that's where I'm at. Like, what exactly can we, how do we say it so that
I'm
it's
afraid to talk to half of these people in public. This is a tiny town.
Yeah.
So if this is the only opportunity I get to say something, you know, with these folks in the room, so I mean, I don't say stuff to taint their mind. I say stuff so that they know where I'm at, what's in my head.
I think, so I'm just gonna be who I always am. I think the intention was not negative. I don't think there was anybody coming in here to ruffle feathers. I think that you guys took the information that you had and you did the best that you could with it. Grace is something that I think everybody should be given and we should all receive. Yes, Nicole, you've been in her shoes where you've been the board president. I have not. I understand communication it's important and you've heard that and you know that feedback. Where I struggle is I'm with these guys 100% when I say people are talking to us, we have things that we're reporting on, that we can't capture in just that little blurb of, you know.
Basically, how do we do what we need to do and still follow?
Yeah, broaden it so we can still have those conversations, but on the other hand, I agree that there are things that if we know it's gonna turn into more of a discussion than a report, it should be something that we're running up the chain to say, this is something that I plan on reporting on, if it's gonna be something that we think is gonna engage or need to be, have public engagement.
And I
So I
think
see
we've
both
got a little off once in a while. We have, and you brought us back. You have.
I'm not gonna lie, it's something I struggle with because I don't want anybody to feel like they're silenced, because you had told me at one point you felt like I silenced you. And so I try very, very hard to not, because I wanna be respectful of what everybody else says. So it is something I struggle with, but yes, I do attempt to.
Yeah.
I think how it was done is truly what set everybody off. It was just that it wasn't presented to us ahead of time that this was something that was coming down the pipe so that we could prepare for that. I kind of just felt like everybody felt blindsided by the change, and it was just immediate and nobody had really a heads up about it. If we could find a way to make public comment or board reports reporting and not necessarily a discussion, and maybe that's what we have to just find is that right language to protect us. But I've heard names being named, people being called out. I've heard things that could potentially get us in trouble in a position where we should be giving a board report, but now it's like we're getting into the weeds. So I get why we have to do this. I just think how it came down the pipe was why we all kind of felt the way that we felt in the moment.
Could have been done better.
Okay, well,
We can't go back.
yeah, Lori, please.
I just, and I want to tell Sabrina, you have brought us back, especially recently with the grammar school and everything. We've kind of gotten on into the weeds a little bit, and you have brought us back. And so, I think that's necessary, but I think we've been intelligent enough and professional enough to know when we'll come back.
And the other recommended new section was future agenda items. And Ron, you just gave a perfect example of one that probably should be. You could come in here, say, hey, I'm aware of this. I'd like to see it on a future agenda so that we can fully discuss it.
I will say I like the future agenda item because then it's a line of communication that everybody knows what we want to talk about.
Yeah.
Because that has not been transparent.
We've never had that.
We have never had that.
When I first got on the board, I came to you, sorry, Toby, I came to Judy and I said, how do I get something on the agenda? And you remember this, Judy?
I remember exactly.
And Judy goes, I do not know.
Yeah, that's not what I said. What I said was, you take it to the president, who takes it to, or the superintendent, and those two decide.
Initially, you said, I don't know.
Right, because I didn't know at the time that there was a procedure.
I know, I told you that because you asked me and I said, and it was like my first year, I think, as president. You asked me, how do I get something on the agenda? And I was like, I didn't even know.
Yeah.
Well, and I would expect if we say something that is potentially gonna get us in trouble, then I would like to hear from you. I'd like to say, hey, Lon, you're not supposed to say that, you can't do that. And when we do our trainings, and like I said, we do this open meeting law, at least I know I do, 6 times a year, whatever it is.
I've done it a million times.
It's been a bunch, but, so the fact I didn't go to this one isn't because I'm shirking my duties on an open meeting. I've done a lot of them, and if we want to add that stuff, hey, just remember when you're in your, when you're making comments that they have to be this or that. We don't mind structure for what we make. We don't want to say anything that's going to potentially cause litigious stuff for the district. But at the same time, we have to say something. If I don't say something in a meeting, if I don't have my chance to at the very end to at least thank people that invited me to their event, as I went and spoke as a school board member at the Masonic Lodge or at the Key Club or whatever. If I don't have time to a specific place where I can thank those folks and stuff like that, I feel bad. And I think I honestly think they'll get pissed off at me. So I don't want to.
And Zachary mentioned maybe celebrations would be a good place for some of the.
Yeah, I was trying to think, because I'm thinking of one that, it's not agendized, it's something that I kind of want to bounce off Sabrina that came up, but it's really not. It's something that I think is more appropriate after the board meeting's over, to talk about it, and I just give you a heads up, hey, this is what I'm hearing, can you tell me more? So I think, if we can get it in the celebrations. We also talked about, when Colby and or I are trying to come up with ideas, and Sabrina was part of that, sometimes I'm looking at it through one prism, so to get more, more of a scope where Ron might know, hey, I was at, denial last week and with Colby and that, that's great stuff.
Or like
right?
one of the
So-
things when we were talking about, one of the reasons why I came up with why we were talking about the board maybe being more part of celebrations is I thought about things like Nicole, you've talked about in the past how certain sports groups were getting celebrated and others weren't. And so I was thinking about
Or band or.
yeah, but how sometimes you or Jenna, people that have high school kids or something as a parent, sometimes you guys know more about that stuff than any of the rest of us do. And so what a great time to be hey, I want to include this on celebrations. Whether you say it or whether you guys email Dustin or Colby and say, hey, can we celebrate so-and-so at the next meeting? Because that has always been one of my things is why aren't we more part of a celebration, I guess? Because we do celebrate a lot of stuff. It just happens in board reports and it doesn't end up kind of as big as the celebrations. So it'd be really cool to get to actually truly celebrate. Lori?
I think too, just to take it back to where we were too, is that, previously we had an attorney that sat right there. And when we got off base, he said, well, stop. Or he said, you can't do that. Or he stopped it. Where Rob, you're on Zoom, we understand that, but you've never said that once to us, And so I think maybe more participation from you too, whether it's on Zoom or you come in person to our meetings would help. Because John kind of kept us,
Anchored.
yeah,
I'll have that discussion with Colby.
okay.
Colby, you had something you wanted to say?
No, I was actually gonna add that piece about the celebrations, because what I keep hearing you guys say is you wanna acknowledge things in the community, and that's what Dustin and I try to do, and we're not always great at it, because we get busy and forget to rage at it sometimes, so that's for some of this, I don't have the answers to all of it, but for some, the celebration thing seems like a perfect time to have everybody,
Well, but that's just part of it. We're just using those, that's one example, and that's the thing is, I certainly, I don't care what you call it, as long as people know I'm gonna say the usual stuff I say at the end of a meeting. I haven't gotten us in trouble. I don't think I will. I think I understand the liability behind it fairly well. But I don't want to feel like I can't say something in a meeting if I want to. And that's, if that's the case, then I will take my full 3 minutes during public comment. And I know that I can do that as well. And that's, so it's those comments that we make at the end of the meeting, it's our chance for a public comment basically without having to walk up there. We generally aren't creating a discussion about it. I've never really said anything where I've asked you questions or had a discussion on the topics I brought up. It gives us a chance to say things that we feel we need to say.
I agree, and I have a few more thoughts if you'll allow me. I think that you make a good point, Lonnie. It's not, having a section on your agenda called board reports is not an OML violation. It's what might happen during that section that could lead to a violation. So just to clarify that. I asked Colby to pull up a couple of different policies, and the reason for that is that I want to correct a statement that I made at the beginning of the meeting. When we first opened up and talked about, who gets to make the agenda and all that, during the course of the meeting, I had a chance to do a little bit of research on that. And if you'll scroll down to subsection 7 on the next page, it's laid out pretty clearly in your own policies. Order of business. The order of business at all regular meetings shall be in accordance with a written agenda submitted by the superintendent to the members before or at the beginning of each meeting. At his or her discretion, the president of the board may change the order of any item posted. So it's not the president's job to set the agenda, it's the superintendent's job. So if Colby wants to rename a section of the agenda Ron's Story Time Hour, he can do that. You guys have given him the power through your policies to do that. And just to drive home that point even further, if you'll go to 2005 subsection 2, yeah, right there. powers and duties of the superintendent, it basically says the same thing again. The superintendent, who shall serve as executive officer of the school district, shall have the following specific powers and duties and shall be directly responsible to the board for their exercise. A, he or she shall prepare the agenda for each board meeting. Couldn't be more clear. So twice in your policies, it's laid out that this is Colby's job. So my advice to you guys for tonight is, because of all the controversy and feeling blindsided, and you had this vote earlier, and I'm going to talk about that in a second. Actually, no, let's talk about that now. Let's go to the agenda for tonight's meeting and go back to that approval of the agenda that we opened with. Yes, C1 there. Can you click on that? Okay, the question was asked, if we can't set the agenda, then what is this all about?
Why
Well,
are we approving it? That was the question.
okay, and the
Not about
answer,
setting it.
I don't have any problem with who sets the agenda,
okay,
but we approve the agenda, the content of the agenda, and we also make motions to amend the agenda if we want to move someone up for time lapse or anything like that. So exactly how we did this one, I make a motion to accept the agenda with the following amendment, and everyone says aye, and that's it. If we don't have any say in that, why are we doing that?
well, in the answer,
Then let Colby say, hey, Colby, I'm gonna change, Colby says, hey, guys, I'm gonna change item 1 to item 3, and that's the end of discussion.
well, the answer appears actually right here. It says items on the agenda may be taken out of order by the board. The board may combine 2 or more agenda items for consideration. The board may remove an item from the agenda or delay discussion relating to an item on the agenda at any time. It doesn't say, though, you get to restructure or rename the agenda. It's just that you get to reorder the agenda. I mean, that's the way I read that.
Does it say we can't restructure the agenda?
I think you only have, well, no, it does not say that, to answer your question. But I think you only have the powers as they are given. And I think you have the power to organize the agenda, but not make the agenda. And by making a motion to make that change earlier, that feels more like a changing of the agenda. However, that being said, I know this caught everybody off guard. I think we should do exactly what you moved for earlier and was approved by a majority of this board. Have your board reports at the end of this meeting. After this long discussion, I'd be shocked if anybody committed an open meeting law violation. I think we're all pretty well versed on that now. But going forward, I think you should make your opinions known to the man who sets the agenda. Let Colby know how you feel about everything we spoke about here today. Schedule a meeting with him and
If
say,
I know about it, I'll be happy to.
okay, I'm saying schedule a meeting.
Right, Colby?
I'm saying call Judy, schedule a meeting with Colby and go in there and say, I absolutely will die on this hill. We are gonna have board reports and I am gonna speak. Or go in and tell Colby, I agree with everything Rob and the AG and Wayne Carlson said, and I think it's inappropriate. This is why this guy gets the big bucks. He's gonna weigh all those opinions. He's going to decide, he's gonna make the agenda under the power granted to him by 2 policies that you have adopted. Okay, that's all I got.
Well, that's actually fine.
Fair enough.
Looking at those policies, they weren't updated since 2007, so that's something we need to revisit on a future agenda item. I do think the board needs to be involved in some part of capacity with your leadership to help with the agenda. Obviously, you bring it to her, but I mean, it's a collaboration, but somewhere that needs to be noted as well, because what if it's not Colby and we have someone else come in that's not willing to work?
Well, that's why I think, to your point, I really like that idea of future agenda items, because sometimes it is hard to come up with an agenda, so I
Yeah.
appreciate the fact that you guys gave me some items
Oh,
last
I
week.
called you
to pull out, so-
yesterday, to talk to you about.
Yeah, Lori did that yesterday, but no, so I think that's a great point you made earlier, Nicole, is that's a great opportunity to help me do that.
Also,
I just think for future reference, anyone who is in any position to change the normal operating procedure of how we do business on this board, that it's really wise to let everybody on the board know before that change is made and allow us to weigh in on our opinion. You can do whatever you want, but we need to be allowed to weigh in our opinion and make decisions moving forward after that.
I do have a question for Nicole, because to try to get everybody more involved in the agenda. Like, we've tried it one way before, do you remember, where everybody got to have like an agenda meeting with Dave? And is there a better mechanism that you guys would like to be involved with the agenda? Because I know that didn't work very well.
Yeah,
I don't know.
I don't
For whatever
remember when
reason.
that happened, Dave. I was only part of the agenda when I was on the leadership. Obviously,
I
I'm
think
still.
he just told us, like, he called us once the agenda was set and went over
It went over everything.
yeah.
Yeah.
So it
If
wasn't
I, if I can refresh you, because I worked with Dave on that, and every one of you wanted to be involved in that. He said, okay, so he set up a call with you two at like 8:30, and you like at 9, and you at 9:30.
I used to have calls with them
And every meeting, there was a section missing and people missing. And so Dave said, we're just gonna go back to president, vice president, him, Dustin, and the attorney. They will set it, the attorney will tell them, you do not say this, you stay away from this, or this is the answer on that, and then they would do it. And that's how the call's been going on for almost 3 years.
Well, so I guess
just
It was like that before.
And I don't
We only
really
did
mind that, because if there's something really specific on that I want to add to the agenda, I mean, I made sure to call ahead of time about this,
Correct.
about the Winnemucca Grammar School stuff, that I wanted that to be I said it at the end of a meeting during my board comments. I said it,
Yeah.
on a couple of phone calls, couple of emails after that I want to see this on the agenda, and it showed up on the next agenda, and that was that. I'm not gonna get an item on the agenda if I want it, and generally, I don't want to add more crap for everyone to have to
Yeah.
talk about.
Well, so I'm just trying to, because
I'm good with that.
again, trying to learn, trying
Again,
to be better.
I feel like the future agenda item
Yeah, I think it's a
is
good way
a
to do it.
great thing. The communication needs to be better, which you obviously know that. Moving forward, and you can only fix it from here, right?
Well, and I will say too, like, I feel like maybe I don't reach out as much as I should, because like Lori said you don't have anything from me, but like, I feel like Nicole, whenever you text me, we text back and forth. Ron has texted me, we'll text back and forth. Like, Lonnie has called me, like,
And I think.
and so I think I need to be better about reaching out versus just responding.
Correct. I think maybe after the agenda goes out, you send an email that says, hey, does anyone have any questions? Let me know before, or whatever, or send out a rough draft even. Sometimes I know you get busy, right? I've been on those agenda calls, it's busy. And you know, what Judy said, all of us have jobs, like, we have lives outside of here.
I know.
And, well, Lori's retired.
Okay, Lori.
And
You
none
need
of
to
us-
call Lori
none of
3
us
times
make
a day.
a call. Lori with big bucks.
We need somebody to talk to.
But as far as the community, it just needs to be open-ended. Clearly, I see that we need to update our policy so that if Colby's not here or we're not here as a board, there's not some superintendent that's gonna hijack your agenda, because that's what I see happening right here. I'm not saying that it would happen, but
But you can't,
You
like, we
can't
always say,
promise
you can't
that.
predict who's
and I
gonna be
can't
here in the
predict in the
future.
future, and
It has happened in the past.
yes, it has.
Mhm.
We've lived it. It has happened, but I think the future agenda items is a great start. And then we do need to figure out how to restructure, or if we just have board reports, stay on track. I don't know. I don't want to see board reports go away, obviously, but
Well, and so if it's okay with everybody, I would love everybody to really think on what you ideally would see that as. Like, not just what it should be called, but like, what,
I want to call Lonnie's favorite story hour.
but like,
Lonnie, we
what,
don't have
what,
all night.
what
That's
you guys as a board feel.
Look, I love your stories too.
And so I also have help in understanding what you guys would like to see me curb from it. So if everybody wouldn't mind kind of giving that some thought, and text, email, call, whatever you're most comfortable with, because like Lori, I know, and that's the other thing, if everybody reach out to me and tell me the best ways to actually communicate things out to you, because like Lori, I know you said you don't get a lot of emails. So if it's, I need a different email for you, if you'd rather me text or call you, if everybody would just let me know what is the best way to reach out to you, then I would really appreciate that.
Okay.
Does anybody have any further questions or comments on this?
I'm good.
Moving on to item H, public comment. Anybody? Come on up and speak at the table, speak your name clearly, and keep your comments under 3 minutes, please. And please understand that the board cannot interact.
My name is Bonnie Kilbish, and I would just like to respectfully request that the microphones be turned up or turned on, because it's very difficult sitting here to hear, especially if I'm in the middle here, and I know I'm gray haired, but I have other younger people telling me the same thing, that they actually cannot hear you guys. And I know you have microphones, I just wish they'd be turned on or turned up so that we could hear them. And that's all I know.
Yeah, the microphones are for the taping,
So,
so we're not amplified at all.
Don't we
We
have
have
any
to
kind of
speak up.
things?
No, that was removed like 4 years ago.
Oh,
You just sit
they
there
took
and
them away.
taken it out, and it cost, according
So
to.
we'll have to
Okay.
speak up, but we
Sorry,
can make
keep
it
going, Bonnie.
Something, yeah.
Thank you. That's all I
Thank
got. Just thank you.
And I agree, Bonnie, I wear hearing aids and I still couldn't hear
Yeah,
my.
it is hard.
I know, Mike's hard.
He does speak so.
because I'm a.
Okay, moving on to item I, board reports. And this is the one change that if everybody is okay with, one thing Rob told me is maybe we don't go around and like I call on people individually. I just ask, does anybody have anything they would like to report? Please raise your hand if you do, in case there's multiple. Okay, Lori?
Well, last meeting you said the board report should be agenda items that we might want on, right?
No, that's gonna be
That's the
item
next
J,
agenda.
future agenda items.
Oh, okay, so we got that, okay, that's right, all right, so we got an item J on there. And then there was one other thing. Committee reports, right? And that was it, right? Okay. So,
Okay. Thank you, Lori. Ron?
Just my only item to report on is that an entity bought the old Nielsen's Bar and Grill across from the gas station at the 95 turnoff. It's a bus stop. They're gonna put in, they got an application in for a commercial well.
It was,
Did it pass?
in the planning commission, it passed.
Okay. Anyway, it's gonna be a 100-unit storage unit facility, RV park,
For
and
20.
supposedly a bar and grill. And so with the congestion on 95 already, and we have a bus stop right there, just throwing it out there for everybody to keep their eye on it. And
The one across the highway from Sinclair.
yeah, Nielsen's old,
down the road a little bit. Old building. Rock building.
so. Yeah, we've already had numerous fatalities in that stretch right there. In front of Danny Martinez's place, there's actually large concrete blocks to protect his house because it got ran into 3 times, I believe, from traffic. So it's kind of a bad area. So just with the school bus stop there and everything, just wanted to keep that in everybody's mind as we move into this next year with all these changes.
Thank you, Ron. Does anybody else have anything they would like to report on this evening? Okay, thank you, everybody. Seeing none, moving on to item J, future agenda items. Does anybody have anything? Nicole?
Can we look at those policies from 2007? We've updated several policies.
Yeah. Poor Dustin.
I can make that down, so yeah.
And I noted also.
Okay, I just want to make sure so that we're on that part. Thank you, that's all.
Yeah, on our MTSS program, we haven't had a report on that in quite some time, and I know that they're doing some really good work with that right now. I think it'd be beneficial if we could agendize a report from them. Also, Alan Colt, with that tax information that he can give us, where we can maybe capitalize on either liquor tax, gas tax, or cigarette tax. Some of those things, that'd be good in the future. And then we haven't had a maintenance report in a while either.
That was what I was gonna.
Maintenance?
What was the first program, Lori?
MTSS.
MTSS. Kobe used to run that.
said empty nest.
Thank you, Lori.
And I got version too.
Does anybody have anything further they would like to see? Any celebrations, anybody think that they would like to see?
I have an idea, but.
Do you want to email it?
Yeah.
Okay, perfect, thank you.
I got an idea for one too. Still.
Surprise birthday party?
Yes.
Maybe she should just say, if anybody has any ideas for possible celebrations, try to get them to us by like the 23rd. Does that work for everybody? Thank you, Grace. Okay. All right, if there's nothing further, I would entertain a motion to adjourn.
I'll make a motion to adjourn.
Second.
Been motion and seconded, all those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Thank you, everybody.
Thank you.
You what?
Yeah, will you shut the board?
No, I just go with the garbage.